Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of Goddamn Gamecube. If you like our show, please leave us a rating on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Intern Nick are leading the way today. And I just want to get down to brass tacks right away. This might be one of the most difficult episodes we're ever going to record on Goddamn Gamecube. I'm going to say for this episode, there is no forgiveness and no mercy. We are going to be doing a deep dive on Final Fantasy XVI. We have a lot of complaints. We have a lot of grievances. We are going to, of course, display our compliments. We are going to talk about the good as well. But I want to make sure our audience knows this may be rough. So, Nick, I'm going to let you take it because, honestly, I don't know where to start with this thing, this monstrosity. Wait, this $300 million monstrosity. So, Nick, why don't you take it from there and let's do this.
Thank you, Greg. I think I'm happy to be here.
I was about to say that. Like, are we happy to be here? Like, it's
Final
one of these
Fantasy?
things where, like, I feel like Final Fantasy 16 is like in the principal's office. And I want to say something like the principal, like, listen, I don't want to be in this room with you. Like, you know, I don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. But we have to talk about this.
We really do. We really do have to talk about this.
Let's do it.
I'm going to get things rolling here.
Please.
So, as the title suggests, this is the 16th mainline Final Fantasy game released on June 22nd, 2023. It was developed by Creative Business Unit 3, a section of Square Enix, who are also the developers of Final Fantasy XIV, with their lead developer being the lead developer of 16.
Interesting.
Which everybody loves Final Fantasy XIV, but not everybody loves Final Fantasy XVI.
Which you're about to find out over the course of the next 60 to 90 minutes.
I hope it's only 60 to 90 minutes.
Me too.
At the time of this recording, Final Fantasy XVI is a PS5 exclusive, though it is coming to PC and perhaps Xbox later on in its life. But right now, it is just on PlayStation 5. And at release, it is the only mainline Final Fantasy game to be rated M.
That's interesting.
The only other M-rated Final Fantasy games are Type 0 and Stranger of Paradise.
Okay, I actually played Type 0.
Which is really funny because I haven't.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I think those are both spin-offs, so technically they're not in this main line. So just to get us going here, I would like to say I am a veteran of the Final Fantasy franchise. I have played pretty much every single one of these games except for Type 0 and the MMOs. Greg, you've played a good amount of them. Haven't finished all of them, but still have enough Final Fantasy experience to have a valid opinion of what we're going to talk about.
I think, like, my experience in this franchise, I think is definitely enough. Where, just as a quick rundown, because I don't think we've talked about Final Fantasy since we did Madness.
We have actually, I was going to mention, we have never done a deep dive on a Final Fantasy game on this show.
Okay, so my experience with Final Fantasy is I have beaten all the tactics games, Type 0, and unfortunately this one. So, and now
so
just
weird.
for more experience, like I've played a lot of 2, 5, 6, like I played some 13 and 15. Like I'm very familiar with the universe.
Yeah.
I've finished some of them, but Nick has finished almost all of them.
Yes, and that's a lot of varying experiences.
That's a lot of crystals and like white mages and black mages and all that. Anyway,
it's a lot of bullshit.
It's a lot of bullshit.
All right, so we'll get right into it. Final Fantasy XVI is set in the world of Valisthea, therefore not connected canonically to any other Final Fantasy games, though it is filled with loads of references that we may get into during the course of the episode. Feel free to drop your favorite ones in the comments if you would like. The story follows the life of Clive Rossfield, who is a royal of the Rossfield family who rules the Grand Duchy of Rosaria on Storm, which is one of the continents of Valisthea. And he is the guardian of his brother Joshua, who is the dominant of the icon Phoenix. And after the fall of his kingdom, Clive is forced into slavery, but a meeting with the outlaw Cid Telemann forces Clive into a worldwide conflict over the realms, mother crystals, and the icons. If all those proper nouns mean absolutely nothing to you, don't worry, we'll get into it.
Yeah, right.
And this being the statement of that describes this game really is like the crux of the issue. Is there's so much stuff that you have no idea what's going on at all.
So I'll make one funny comment. It's only funny to me. The only other Clive I know is Clive Owen from Children of Men.
Excuse me, you don't remember Clive from Shadows of Valentia?
Oh, no. Not at,
No, I don't actually.
Not at all. I just like that movie. So,
all right. Anyway, so before we get into, well, our normal episode format, something very interesting came up during this game's development. A major criticism of the pre-release footage and anything like that was that Final Fantasy XVI was not a real Final Fantasy game due to the tone being very different and the battle system being more of an action RPG.
well, it plays more like a Platinum game.
It does.
Or like, what's a good comparison? It plays a little bit more like Devil May Cry.
It's like a shitty Devil May Cry, like if you couldn't do any combos.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it is.
Kind of.
So the director of this game actually had a pretty interesting comment about, they brought this up to him, like, what do you make of people saying this is not a Final Fantasy game?
I read this.
What do you think a Final Fantasy game is? And I'm going to paraphrase what he said because I think it's very funny. So if I didn't say before, the director of the game is Naoki Yoshida. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was asked, what makes a Final Fantasy game a Final Fantasy game? And he said, you need to have the best story, the best graphics, the best battle system. You need to have a lot of content. You need to have the chocobos, Moogles. You need to have great sound, and that makes a Final Fantasy. And if you're missing even one of them, the fans will hate you forever.
Wow.
And that's what he said.
And honestly, but they did all of that in this, and I still hate him. and you know what? And for some reason, he still missed, right? He still missed.
Poor Yoshida.
Honestly, he's going to be at PAX, and in a couple of weeks, I'm going to give him a piece of my fucking mind, honestly. Don't put a microphone in my hands.
So I wanted to ask you, Greg, what do you think of this like online debate, whether not even just Final Fantasy related, because this comes up sometimes if a series has a game that has a totally different direction than maybe the prior games, maybe like a God of War sort of thing. And the fans say, that's not a real blank game. How do you feel about that?
I think what's really difficult is there are too many of these games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think you can't make a statement like this is not a Final Fantasy game because in some of them you like go to the moon, in some of them you play basketball, right?
And one of them you do both.
I know. I think, is that 8?
Yeah.
So I think for me, when I think Final Fantasy, I think, sure, you got Moogles and you got Chocobos. I think of a job system or class system. I think of like white mages, black mages, that kind of thing. However, I don't know if I should go into this right now, but I'm going to say a little bit.
Go for it.
I think the darker tone or serious tone of this game is actually to its benefit, but they just fuck it up. Like, I actually think it's a positive where like you're not doing the kid friendly crystal chasing. You're just doing adult friendly crystal chasing.
I was still crystal chasing just for adults.
I think it's actually to the game's benefit, but they just fumble it.
Yeah, I think I would agree. We'll get into that more when we talk about story, but I tend to agree with that statement. I agree with that too, because it's like every Final Fantasy game is so different.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to say. Even they all play differently too.
Yeah.
Like 1 and 2 are wildly different games. But so I just say whoever said this game is not a real Final Fantasy game, get over yourself.
It is. I mean, I'm sorry that it is.
But it is.
It is. You have to live with that.
Yeah, like it or not, it is.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to start doing our deep dive here. How we've arranged this as we're actually going to cover the best parts of this game and progressively get a lot worse.
Yeah.
So first, we're going to talk about aesthetics.
Okay.
So the first thing I'd like to mention here, Final Fantasy XVI won Best Score and Music at the 2023 Game Awards.
Really?
Beating Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Tears of the Kingdom, and Hi-Fi Rush.
Interesting.
Do you think this was deserved?
That's a great question. What I was reminded of is how Final Fantasy does have so many iconic soundtracks, or people love 10, or they love like the first one or whatever. I think it's possible. Okay, I'm not saying the games it was competing against have bad sound, but they perhaps won in a year where competition was not as difficult.
True. Yeah.
Also, actually, I didn't make this up. Actually, this is an Austin Wintory statement that I'm about to paraphrase. He said something along the lines of he felt it was weird how the Final Fantasy VII remake soundtrack was so praised because it existed 25 years ago. Like, why is it getting awards? It's not new. And so in Final Fantasy 16, they rehash themes from the older games. Sure, yeah, some of it's original.
Yeah.
And I like some of it. But I do think there's a little bit of an asterisk because a lot of Final Fantasy rides on nostalgia because you've played it before. When they have like, what's the Final Fantasy theme called? Like the you know what I'm talking about?
I think it's just called Theme of Final Fantasy.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Example, that gets remixed in this game. Like there's a lot of like rehashing of old ideas, and it's actually tasteful. But not all of this soundtrack is quote unquote original, right?
Yeah.
It's been done for a long time.
Yeah.
It could have been a weaker competition year.
It's true.
Fine. I mean, for all the complaints I have about this game, like the soundtrack is not one of them.
No, I would say me neither. I like the soundtrack a lot. I think. Yeah.
Do you know what though? I'll make one more point. Like it actually reinforces my thought that I think I've said on the show before, where I think a motive and theme based soundtrack is just what I prefer.
Yeah.
When each town or whatever has a singable theme and they put that kind of effort in, I tend to like that better.
Yeah. And they do a lot of that in Final Fantasy 16.
Sure.
I think I told you at the very beginning, I think if you never go off the main menu, this game is an A. Because the main menu theme rocks.
Yeah, if you just never push start.
That's right. If you never push start, never go off the PlayStation menu, this game is an A. And what you said about the theme, I think their rendition of the main Final Fantasy theme toward the end of the game is
good.
very well done.
It's good.
Yeah, I think it's nice. It put a little made my,
It's
put my
like,
heartstrings
I mean,
a little
like I can't say the same about any other part of this game.
right, but that part did.
Yeah, I think the music team did their job.
Yeah. So, big kudos to Masayoshi Soken, who is the lead composer of the game, followed by many others on his teams.
It's a team composition game, I think.
Yeah. I think a lot of games are doing that nowadays.
Oh, in these $300 million productions they are.
Yeah. It's no longer Nobuo Uematsu just doing the whole thing again. Yeah. And anyway, so aside from the music, we're now going to get to the voice acting, which I do believe for the most part was very strong. We're going to talk about the English voice cast for the most part here. My favorite performance was probably Sid, who was Ralph Ineson. I think he did an incredible job. But I think all the VAs did a great job keeping up this game's more serious tone.
There's something, I actually have notes about the voice acting in this game. There's something weird about this game. Okay. A lot of it is.
I was going to say just one thing.
It's really all of it. There's something weird about the voice performances in this game. And it's not that, how do I put this? I think adult Clive and adult Sid, they were probably the best actors in this game.
Yeah.
Other ones are fine. Like we get into like actors like Gav and like Jill and all that. They're fine.
Yeah.
What bothers me about this game, I'm going to try to describe this.
Okay.
Especially in the first half of the game.
Yeah.
It sounds like the voice actors are talking to you. They're not talking to each other. It's almost like all of them are like waiting for their Oscar moment, or they're going for a giant speech about some philosophical thing, but they're saying it to you. Because either bosses let them have a giant dialogue without touching them, or they're like doing this like loud whispering thing where it's meant for you.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to get used to it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it sounds bad. It sounds odd. Like it doesn't feel like they are consistently talking to each other all the time. It felt weird to me, at least in the first couple of hours.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so have you played a Final Fantasy game before?
Yeah.
This intense monologuing and Oscar moment. Oh, it happens all the time. I mean, I do want to give a shout out to Ben Starr, who is the voice actor for Clive. He does not have a lot of video games on his credit. So he is a fairly new video game voice actor. And he played Clive through every stage of his life. Throughout this game, teenager, 20s, and 30s. And as you age, you'll notice you sound very different in your teens, your 20s, and your 30s.
Right.
So I think Ben did a pretty remarkable job as the role of Clive.
Yep.
I'll give him some kudos there. He was nominated at the Game Awards as well, but he lost to our friend Neil Newbon, who is the voice of Asterion in Baldur's Gate 3, and also the voice of your favorite character from Resident Evil 8.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Perfect.
All right, so after the voice acting, let's get to the performance of the game. I think this is actually one of the stronger parts. There's so much stuff happening all the time. There are these huge cinematic battles. There's going to be fireballs flying through. There's going to be crazy quick time sequences and a bunch of shit going on, but I never saw a single frame drop, single crash, nothing.
Yep. So this game crashed 0 times. I didn't see any bugs or any like visual oddities. Like it was very smooth.
Yeah, and I played this game on release, so I played it before. I don't even know if there's been a major patch for it. As far as I know, there was no major patch to fix any sort of performance issues.
As far
on this
as like
game.
the music and the optimization, it checks out.
Yeah, I think the team did a very good job with the production quality. It's a shame that we have to like praise that these days. You know, the game shipped not buggy and it works.
I know.
But you know,
for $300 million,
it better
I'm
have.
glad it worked.
I mean, a lot of that clearly went into the performance and the music. All right, so now we're going to get into the graphics. Now, I think the game looks stunning, right? I think the environments are great. The character models and the characters' looks, I think, are for the most part very good. My only critique with them is that I sometimes thought a lot of the characters looked alike.
Yes. So here's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
In terms of the fidelity of the game is very high.
Yeah.
I don't like the art direction that much.
Okay, yeah.
And it's because of this.
Yeah.
I think I brought this up in the chat where for some reason the main characters look so sexy and cool and every other character looks lame.
Yeah.
And it looks weird. And I'll say why. Yeah. It looks really weird when Clive does anything normal. It looks weird. Where like he's in this really sexy like dragon looking armor and he's like cracking beers at the bar. It's really weird. Like you laugh, but like it's odd.
It is funny,
and it's
yeah.
really odd how every side character looks really lame, but he looks so sexy and cool. It's weird.
Really funny. That is really
Now,
funny.
the environments look great.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this too. Unfortunately, there was another problem, I think, with this game.
Yeah.
Where I think your character is also too physically big and like
very
intimidating.
big. Yeah.
Example, when you're running around a town or a castle, you look bigger than all the furniture.
Yeah, you're fucking huge.
It's like Clive is never going to sit in a chair.
Do we ever see him sit in a chair?
No.
I'm not sure.
I think he lays on a bed once.
That's right. That's right.
Like
It's probably
it
king size.
looks weird.
Yeah,
like
he's so
it doesn't seem like Clive is like of this world. Like he would never like sit in a mundane piece of furniture. I don't like it.
But was he of this world?
Right.
Well, I mean, I actually agree because I think it's really funny to watch Clive do like normal human things.
It looks weird.
One of my favorite parts, by favorite, I mean funniest, that I laughed a lot at is there's a scene with him and Sid and he has to drink out of this cup. One, the cup is like absolutely tiny in his hands and he sees this like really terrible reflection of himself in the wine. Absolutely hilarious. All right, so now we're going to get into something that is very near and dear to you right now. By near and dear, I mean you hate it.
Okay.
The amount of cutscenes in this game.
Well, here's say this.
Okay.
I don't hate cinematics.
No.
I hate them in this game. I don't hate them.
So here, we're going to lay down right now. Final Fantasy XVI, compared to other Final Fantasy games, if we're just talking main story, is not one of the longer ones. If you just did the main story of this game, probably take you 30, 35 hours.
The whole thing all in is about 50.
Yeah, if you do literally everything.
Yeah.
But we're talking just main stuff, 30, 35 hours.
And I unfortunately did everything.
Did right. We both, unfortunately.
We should say that. Nick and I both 100% of this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Not 100% trophies, but we did basically everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are 11 hours of cutscenes.
Can I interject?
Yes.
There are 11 hours of cutscenes not counting in battle.
Correct. That's so, if you count the in-battle ones, there's even more. Somewhere between 30 and 40% of the main base game is cutscenes.
Yeah, I think, so if you think about it, this game is, you're probably going to sink about 40 to 50, and about 12 to 15 hours of it, you're just watching it.
Now, if you're going to argue with me here, I know people who play a lot of JRPGs or RPGs in general, trust me, I play a lot of them too, will say, well, that's normal for a JRPG. It is not, and I'm going to tell you why.
Give us the math.
So, I'm using some previous Final Fantasy titles for comparison here.
Sing it, brother.
Yep. Final Fantasy X, which is about a 45 to 50 hour base game. So about 10 to 15 hours longer than Final Fantasy XVI, had 8 hours of cutscenes.
Sing it.
Final Fantasy XIII, which we know is a shit show, but is a very long game.
It is a shit show.
Yeah, had 9.
Oh boy.
So this Final Fantasy XVI is not only shorter than those games by a significant margin.
Most of the time, you're not playing it.
Yes.
You're just watching it.
That's right. The only other games I can think that might rival Final Fantasy XVI for cutscenes are maybe like a Metal Gear Solid or a Death Stranding.
Yeah.
And for me, listen, the cutscenes look nice, but I want to play the game at a certain point.
I think maybe we should talk about this now.
Yeah.
I think a big problem with the cinematics in this game is they happen like every 5 minutes. In the first 50% of the game, it actually gets a little bit better in the second half of the game.
Yeah.
In the first half of the game, there is a 5 to 10 minute long cinematic every time you enter a new area. Every fucking time. And I'm not joking.
No.
It's every time. And what happens, I think when I was playing the first couple of hours of this game, what I said to you is, can I just play it? They never let you fucking play it.
No.
And it's, oh my God. And what it feels like to me, almost like my stomach hurts playing it because I feel like I start and stop and start and stop, and you can just they don't let you play the game for more than 10 minutes at a time, and it's so boring.
Yep.
Like, it's so aggravating.
No, it's I think what they tried to do here is, because with Final Fantasy 15, they had an accompanying movie that went with that game. If you didn't watch the movie, you didn't understand all of Final Fantasy 15. I think they wanted to avoid that, so they put the cutscenes in the game instead.
You know what? I may need to redact something that I said in God of War.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember during the God of War Ragnarok discussion, I said it's a little weird how many serious discussions the characters have while they're platforming and jumping? I think in retrospect, that was a good idea because they didn't make you watch it during a cinematic. They let you play while it was happening.
I believe I said that during the episode.
I think you did. And during Final Fantasy 16,
not full of shit all the time.
God, I wish they did that.
Yep, me too.
I don't know.
As like, they're honestly, if you feel free to discuss in the comments whether you think this game had way too many cinematics.
If you think it doesn't, if you were okay with the amount of cinematics, you're wrong. Like this is an opinion-based show.
Yes.
Dude, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
And here's the thing, though.
Yep.
Do I think the amount of cinematics is too long? Yes, but the pacing is fucking disaster in this game.
Yeah, we can talk about pacing now before we get into the gameplay.
We should.
Because I think you were alluding to it earlier. The more serious tone of the game, I think it works very well. How they handle the people talking, how they handle the dialogue, how they handle the writing. It is very serious.
The violence and all that.
It is very adult. It's not the typical Final Fantasy young adult fare. And I think for the most part, they get that right. Where it falls apart is when they have Clive delivering soup or talking to townspeople.
It does, like I said before, Clive doing anything normal looks really weird.
Yes.
And it's so serious and it's so violent. And honestly, well, it's a little bit sexual too, which is kind of odd. But
a lot of butts in this game.
There's a lot of butts.
A lot of butts.
But like, you go from like butts and slitting throats to like, hey, Clive, can you deliver this soup?
Yep.
Like, why did they do that?
And that's what makes the amount of cutscenes so egregious, because even when there's gameplay, you might be delivering soup as part of the main quest.
It's
not
so
even
odd.
A side quest.
Can I actually bring up something that I think is like funny?
Yeah,
but I mean, it's okay. It's not funny, but I'm going to present it in a way that's funny.
Okay.
So I actually have written down here. This is a question I was going to ask you or the audience.
Okay.
Does this game hate women? Because I'm going to say why.
It might.
It might. Yep. In the first 2 hours of the game, now I call the title card when the word Final Fantasy 16 appears on the screen.
Yep.
So before the word Final Fantasy 16 appears on the screen,
Yep.
2 women get their throats cut.
Cool.
2 women get rejected sexually by men.
All
and
right.
Clive's mother is presented as the villain. All within the first 2 hours. I was watching
really
this
funny.
and I was like, do they have like a problem with women in this game? Or maybe they didn't understand that that's what it looks like?
Maybe not.
I don't know.
I didn't notice that, but when you put it out in front of us just like that, it does look like.
And that's literally in the first maybe 90 minutes.
That is really funny.
You don't even get the title card yet. It's odd.
It's really odd, but it's very funny.
It's odd.
All right. So, do you have anything else you want to say about the aesthetics or anything before we move on to gameplay?
I'll say this too. Another problem I have with this game is the world does not feel lived in to me. Because the towns and the castles and the environments, and it doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
That has to do with things we're going to talk about, like the poor side quests and the characters not all looking symmetrical. It all feels odd. It doesn't feel lived into me. I feel like I'm watching a movie and sometimes getting to play it.
Now, I think I agree with that too. It's like the way the world is connected, the way it's presented to you, it looks beautiful. And there's a ton of great lore, but you never really feel like you're part of it.
Do you want to talk about the world design? Do you want to go there next?
Let's talk about that.
For me, this is brief.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this.
Yeah.
I actually feel like this game would have been more successful as a quote unquote open world game. I don't really love how it's organized as like a Dragon Age Inquisition.
I had the same note. It's basically you move around the map almost exactly like Dragon Age
where
Inquisition.
like you essentially like you go into an area and then you fast travel to other areas and not all of them are connected.
Right.
I think this game would have been a little more successful if all the areas were walkable.
Yes.
It kind of is. I think how this works is each kingdom is walkable, but they're not interconnected.
Yeah.
Also, we'll talk about this later, but your main base is not you can't walk to it.
Exactly.
So it feels like you're just fast traveling everywhere. And I think it would have felt better if you could feel the world connect.
It's a problem I had too.
Yeah.
It's like you said, you can walk around the region of Sambrec all you want. You fast travel to any place in Sambrec, you could walk around anywhere you want. But if you were to leave Sambrec and go to Dalmekia or where the Rosfields or Rosaria,
walk there.
You can't. You go to a pillar and you fast travel there.
I don't know. I feel like it would have been better as a connected universe.
I mean, like every Final Fantasy game, pretty much.
Yeah.
Except for this one.
Yeah.
I felt that was one of my first critiques of this game when I like almost immediately started playing. And I thought, this world's not connected like a lot of Final Fantasy games are. Am I not going to get an airship? Am I not going to be able to travel the world? It initially gave me a bit of a sour feeling.
Yeah, it definitely does. It just feels disconnected.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a good segue because now we'll get into the gameplay. We talked about moving around the map. It's actually one of my least favorite parts because I think the exploration is a detriment as well.
Oh,
there
huge.
is nothing interesting to find ever.
Rarely.
You can, like I said, the environments are beautiful. You should want to explore them, but there's never anything cool to find.
No.
Which is I feel it's an unfortunate trend in a lot of video games these days.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of incentives to explore.
Well, any franchise that is not Souls.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, fine. I'll talk about this now.
Yeah.
What bothered me, you're right. I was going to touch on that.
Yeah.
Is where not only the environments don't look bad.
No, they're great.
Some of the areas are actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But what sucks is like when you go into these little maybe secret hallways or secret like you're going to go off into the corner of the map and find a treasure chest.
Yeah.
You rarely get anything useful.
It's like a crafting material you already have 1,000 of or a song.
Or you get like a couple of coins, but you have hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Can I say something really weird? I found the Mazamane out in the wild, but the weapon I bought at the shop was better. How fucking that sucks.
It's kind of lame.
It's really
kind of lame.
You rarely find like better armor or better weapons from exploring, and it hurts the experience.
Yeah, because for me, that's what makes part of a. Oh God, I'm gonna say it. That's what makes a part of a Final Fantasy game for me. Is the exploration, the finding the secrets, the finding the cool stuff. It also doesn't feel good to find the treasure chest either, because Clive just kicks them open like Link does for little treasure chests.
Yeah,
and there's really, I don't know, there's nothing really cool about it.
So when it comes to gameplay, where did you want to go first? Because we could bite off a couple of different things.
So what I wanted to start off first is with the combat.
Sure.
So we're going to go combat first. Like we said earlier, this is an action RPG. It acts more like a
God of War or Devil May Cry
kind of thing.
It's kind of both.
Yeah, where it iterates on the 15 and 13 stagger system, where basically the main objective of every boss fight or big enemy, fill up the stagger meter, knock them down, then pile on as much damage as you can before they can get up.
Yep.
It sounds pretty simple. I think the combat it works for what it is.
Can I bring up some wiggles?
Yeah, of course.
So the stagger system works fine.
Yeah.
And what I don't love about this, you tell me if I'm wrong. I think I'm right.
Probably right.
What bothers me about Final Fantasy XVI's combat, there's a lot that bothers me, but one of the main things that kind of rubs me the wrong way, to me, it doesn't feel like any element is any better against anything else.
So yes,
Yeah.
I was gonna bring that up. They made a point. I believe the developers made a statement about this. They initially wanted elements to be ineffective, like if you're using a fire attack against a fire enemy or whatever, it wasn't going to do anything. Because you are not allowed to switch any of that during combat, they didn't want to screw you over in the middle of a fight.
All right,
they
listen,
made that decision.
If we're getting into that, can I just rip through everything that has to do with that?
Sure, let's do it.
It drives me crazy.
Okay, go for it.
So here's what drives me nuts. So you were leading the way here, but I'll lead this one
That's
a little
fine.
bit.
Go for it.
So this combat essentially comes down to a couple of things. You're swinging a weapon, you're using items, you're using cooldown abilities.
Yep.
And that's about it.
That's really it.
And you're sometimes shooting a magic spell, but it doesn't do very much.
It's like a chip damage.
It's like a chip damage kind of, and that's really it.
Yep.
So what bothers me, this doesn't bother me. Let me sort of explain how they do it.
Yeah.
How they do it is your abilities are governed by obtaining the power of what I call Final Fantasy summons.
It's essentially a summon.
Yeah,
icons.
essentially the iconic summons from the history of the franchise, like Shiva and Ifrit and Odin, or I guess they call him Ifrit in this game.
Ifrit, yes.
And so you kind of get a little bit of a nostalgia drip, like, oh, I've used these summons in the previous games.
Yeah.
And how it works is each summon has has abilities that you can pull from. Example, like I believe they all have 5 or 6 different abilities.
Like that. Yeah.
But the problem is, so let's put it this way. There are, I believe, 30 abilities in this game. I think it could be 36.
Something like that.
You can only slot 6 of them total. So, but what you can't do is you can't switch your slots in combat, and you also cannot activate abilities from the menu.
Correct.
So what that means is you're locked into using 6 abilities out of 30 or whatever the whole game. And so what starts to happen is you start to like stop giving a shit. You just kind of use the 6 ones that annoy you the least, or you think they're fun to look at, and then you just use them. There's another thing that bothers me about this. None of the abilities are based numerically on how good or bad they are. They're only rated in from 1 to 5 stars about how much damage they do or how much stagger they do. They don't give you a numerical value.
No.
So I'm always scratching my head like, well, this ability has 3 stars of damage, and this ability has 3 stars of damage. Elemental effectiveness does not matter. So can I just use whatever? And that bothers me. And also, because you can't switch them out in combat, I'm never going to try anything else. I'm just going to fucking wing it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of person who does like to experiment, but you have to like to do that.
But I did a little. It's not like I kept the first 6, but like it felt like it took me like emotional effort to say, well, fuck, I guess I'm going to try out this other one. And I guess if it's not useful, I'm stuck anyway.
Because I thought a lot of them, to your point, a lot of them are very situational that you wish you could switch in. There's one skill where you can repel magic attacks.
Yeah.
It is not useful unless you're fighting something that uses magic attacks.
Yeah.
So if you have it on, but the current boss or something doesn't use magic, then it's totally worthless.
Do you know what I think they should have done in this game?
Yeah.
Okay. But let me back that up.
Yeah.
I don't like this system at all.
Yeah.
However, the balancing is not bad.
No.
Where this game is kind of easy, but it's not a joke. It's not like, baby difficulty. You have to try.
Yeah.
What I would have preferred is if, you can have 6 abilities, right? I would have preferred if you could hotkey 6 different ones. Like, here's my first category of 6, my second category of 6. And from the menu, you could pick which 6 slots you want.
Like a loadout kind of thing?
Kind of a loadout.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You can maybe have your loadout has 6 abilities, but you can have 4 of them or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Example, like, I'm in an enemy mob. Well, I'm going to use this one.
Yeah,
I'm in a
pick this
boss
loadout.
scenario. I'm going to use this one. But you can't do that.
No, not really. It gives you sort of this illusion of choice.
And there really isn't. The big thing that bothers me beyond this whole thing does.
Yeah.
I wish the abilities had numeric value because it doesn't tell you that Gigaflare hits 60 times.
Sure.
So like, why would I think it has 5-star damage. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Other abilities have 5-star damage. Which one's better?
Yeah.
You don't know.
It's really about comboing it and seeing what you prefer.
But I wish it said this ability does 60 times this number, and it's this number because of your stats. But they don't do that.
No, I mean, that's something I hadn't brought up yet. I was going to. The stats, I honestly don't know if they mean literally anything at all. Like when you level up, I don't think it actually means anything.
I was going to bring that up too. I have this in my notes.
Yeah.
Why do they display what your stats are when you can't manipulate them?
Yeah, there's really nothing you can do. There's maybe some accessories a little bit, but that's it.
So I guess what we're talking about now is the math. So let's at least talk about the math.
Yeah.
The math to me, it sucks. Like it's really basic.
Yeah, it's
you
very
have an
basic.
attack stat, a stagger stat, and a defense stat. And defense is everything. And also every weapon you get has an attack value and a stagger value. And I believe every weapon, those values are the same. Example, if it has 100 attack, it has 100 stagger.
I believe
so.
You're
There's no
right.
variety. Like you're just going to use the next weapon you get is better in both. So you're never going to pick and choose or switch.
There's never really a choice you have to make, and there's really no reason to hang on to old stuff. Not a lot.
No, there isn't. And let me say this.
Yeah.
There is enough customization in this game. It's just not good. Where, example, you can do a weapon, 2 pieces of armor, and 3 accessories. That's okay.
That's
like
fine,
that's
I
fine.
think.
That's
Yeah.
plenty.
I think that's good.
But the accessories, they affect your stats or your abilities by a fraction. So it feels pointless.
The best ones are, I mean, you get some high level ones from doing the job, not the job board, like you
Hunt board.
doing the what the heck is that called? The renown system kind of thing. You get some better ones there. You get the cooldown reducing ones for abilities. Those
But
are really
let me
the
say
best
this, but you
ones.
can only have 3 accessories. Why am I going to cool down one ability when I can't even switch them out? Like,
know.
it feels like I'm dedicating a slot to like this giant thing that I actually don't know how effective it is, right? Because it doesn't tell you.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So if you ask me, what I did was potion healing plus, general attack plus, and general defense plus.
Okay.
Because the general stats generalize the entire game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little disappointed with the accessories and whatnot. I just didn't think there was enough variety.
If you ask me, like
yeah.
I think each summon or each icon should have had accessory slots.
That would have been nice.
I don't know. I didn't love it. I'd like to bring up something else too that has to do with gameplay.
Yeah, of course.
I don't like how the enemies are organized.
How
to
so?
me, it feels like you're either fighting mobs of worthless enemies that will never hurt you, or they will never they have no threat on your life at all. They
Yeah.
will never kill you, or you're fighting a boss where you're just grinding against an HP meter and a stagger meter.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I first started the game. Like, I'm like, man, this boss, I don't know. Like, the first boss you face, this is a lot of HP. It's kind of taken me a while to get through this.
Well, what I don't like is that the enemy mobs pose no threat to you.
No.
Why are they in the game?
Well, now we're kind of getting into the mantra of like random battles and RPGs.
Well, let me say this too. I actually wish
Yeah.
they split the difference a little.
Yeah.
Where I wish maybe every enemy has a stagger meter, but the
Sure.
enemies don't have as much HP.
Sure,
So you
yeah.
have to work the systems into
Yeah.
the game,
Yeah.
but you're not grinding against an enemy for minutes. Like it's it's not fun.
I say at least it is easy to run from encounters.
Sure.
You can just run away from it if you don't want to.
I think a problem I have is I'm okay with these random battle things, but
Yeah.
the enemies never threaten you.
No, the little guys
Why
never
are they
a threat.
there?
No, I think at a certain point in the game, I just stopped fighting them.
Yeah.
There's like no point.
I was 6 levels over the average, so I
there's
just
no
stopped
reason.
doing it.
There's no reason to fight them.
I don't know.
All right, so the next thing we're going to go into, just because like it would be a disservice if we didn't. I would like to go through all the iconic powers that you get.
Sure.
Just give them either a thumbs up if you used it or not, if you liked it, whatever. So the first iconic powers you get in the game are Phoenix and technically Ifrit at the same time.
Sure.
And we should say every single icon also has what's called an iconic feat, which is a special skill that cannot be transferred. Something we didn't say was every ability, like you have a fire ability from Ifrit or something. If you master it with skill points, you can equip it to a different icon.
Yeah, I mean,
you
let's
want.
summarize this quickly.
Yeah.
What you do is you have 3 summon slots.
Yep.
And each and let me think about this.
Yeah.
You have 3 summon slots.
Yeah.
And you can have what? You can customize
abilities
2
each.
abilities per summon.
Yep.
But if you master an ability, example, you can take a Ifrit ability and put it on a Garuda slot.
Yes.
Guess what I'm saying is if you have the Wind God equipped,
Yep.
you can have fire abilities equipped to the Wind God.
Yes.
2 of them. That's
Yes.
why I said you can have 6.
Yes.
Because you have 3 slots times 2.
Yeah, basically. I don't mind that system. I think it's fine.
Well,
it's fine.
we think it's fine, but all the other shit we hate.
Right. This part of it is fine.
This part of it is fine.
And with every icon you get, they all have a feat that cannot be transferred. You can
Yes.
only use it when you have that icon equipped. So the first one is Phoenix and Ifrit. They're kind of counted as the same one. You equip them both. And their iconic feat is Phoenix Shift, which is a quick dash either midair or on the ground. How do you feel about Phoenix and Ifrit?
I kept one fire ability the whole game.
Yeah.
I actually didn't shift like at all because you know what's interesting?
Yeah.
I think if you press X and square at the same time, you dash towards an enemy,
Like a lunge or
but
something.
you don't need phase shift to use it.
No.
So I just stopped using it.
Well, it's actually like I wish I used Phoenix Shift more, but I didn't think the game was hard enough to really warrant me.
Well,
having
the
to
thing
use
about
it. Yeah.
Phoenix Shift too is you don't get a precision dodge when you do it.
No,
so
you
it doesn't
don't.
count as a dodge move. It's
don't.
just for mobility.
That's right.
So
That's
I didn't
right.
find it helpful.
No, it's fine. I think it's a fine ability. I didn't really take off Phoenix throughout the game. The next one you get is and I should mention too, you get these periodically throughout the game.
You don't get
as
them all at the
story
start.
progresses. The next one is Garuda, and the iconic feat is Deadly Embrace, which pulls small enemies toward you, flying enemies out of the air, and can put a mini stagger on big enemies once you deplete half their bar. How do you feel about Garuda?
I actually had Garuda on the whole game.
Did you?
Because I used
Yeah.
Deadly Embrace on everyone.
Okay.
It's interesting. You can use Deadly Embrace to fling yourself into the air
Yep.
if you want to get out of the way of the ground.
That's true.
And you can also, like you said, when you get someone to 50% stagger,
Yeah.
you can actually use Deadly Embrace to get a little bit of a stagger, like damage bonus.
Yeah.
So I yanked everybody with Deadly Embrace.
Interesting. I hated Garuda.
Yeah.
Probably my least favorite one, but I loved the iconic feat, but I hated all of the abilities.
Yeah, I used them a little bit until
Yeah.
I got other ones. There was one where it does a ton of stagger damage.
Sure.
Like, I think it's the claws or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. The next one you get is, I guess they pronounce it Ramu. I thought it was
Rama or whatever.
Yeah. The iconic feat is Blind Justice, where you can lock onto enemies and fire some electric bolts.
Never used it.
Yeah, I was not a fan of this one at all.
Because enemies can hit you while you're targeting, so I just didn't use it.
I wasn't a fan of this. I liked Rima's abilities.
I used 2 of them.
Yes,
I used Pile Drive and Judgment Bolt for a lot of the game.
Oh yeah, I thought those were great on other icons, not on Ramu itself.
Yes.
The next one you get is probably my favorite, just per pure hilarity, which is Titan.
Yes.
And the feat here is Titanic Block, which gives you a shield that you can use to block attacks, and a perfect block results in you parrying, which means taking a giant fist and punching the shit out of somebody.
Sure.
I thought Titan was absolutely hilarious, and I loved using it.
One of the offensive abilities is cool. You do the giant punch.
Yes.
I don't even know what it's called.
Is it wind up?
The wind up.
Yeah, wind up.
Use wind up.
Yeah.
I didn't use the shield at all because you get it, 20 hours into the game?
Yeah.
And I was so used to the dodge button not being that button where I just didn't use it.
Honestly, the shield is not useful. I had fun using it because it is hilarious to parry somebody and then just knock them out with a fist.
Yeah.
It is very funny. The next one you get, and I was so disappointed by that. I was looking forward to getting this one. I was like, yes, I finally get it, and I did not like it, which is Bahamut.
Sure.
One of the iconic summons throughout Final Fantasy, and I did not enjoy it in this game whatsoever.
I used Giga Flare, did you?
No, I didn't like it.
The one where you stop time and shoot the beam?
I don't like it.
Really?
I didn't like it.
You know why it's useful?
Why?
Because the stagger meter stops. It doesn't recover.
Yeah,
as you
I guess
use
that's
it.
true. I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of Bahamut. I didn't like the iconic feat either,
Me either.
Wings of Light, which is like you charge up, but you can get hit and interrupts it. I was
You
not
might
a
as well
fan
just
of that.
attack. Just don't do it.
I was not a fan of that. You know what I was disappointed about? The person that you get Bahamut from is kind of a Dragoon. I thought there would be some like jumping or Dragoon abilities with Bahamut.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
How come you don't get to use any iconic Final Fantasy spells in this game?
I don't know.
Would they say that your little chip damage spell is fire and Fyra or whatever?
Whatever element you have
It's
equipped.
really not.
It's really it.
Where's Fyraga?
There's
Where's
no
Kiraga?
You don't have it.
How come you don't? There's no cure spells.
Yeah, only your
I
party
thought
members
maybe
have
you'd
it.
get Kiraga or something.
Yeah,
you don't. I
You
don't know.
And then the next one is Shiva, which is iconic feat of Cold Snap. Not only is it one of my favorite Sam Adams flavors, but it's one of my favorite iconic feats.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I actually hated this one.
Ooh,
Can I tell
okay.
you why?
Go for it.
Cold Snap just does not work as intended.
Interesting.
Let me
Okay.
tell you why. So it's cool that you get a second dodge feature. Cool. Yeah, it's cool. However, when you use Cold Snap and you use it effectively, the enemy is frozen in place.
Yes.
But after they unfreeze, their attack continues, which means you can Cold Snap someone and then get crushed. Like, so
that's
like
true.
I would Cold Snap bosses, go in and do damage and then get obliterated. Like, so I said, oh, let me hit the dodge button instead because you're saved from damage. Cold Snap still lets you get hit when it's done. I hated
that's
it.
true.
I
don't
fucking
know.
hated it.
I guess I didn't have that experience with it, but
Do you know what I use
each their
Cold
own.
Snap for?
Yeah.
The oh shit, I'm in the middle of a fireball.
Oh yeah, true.
I'm not going to go in and do damage. I'm going to stand there.
That's true. And you could also use it to freeze like a whole mob of enemies, which is kind of fun.
I just don't. If they made one change to it, if the boss's attack stopped,
Sure.
it would be cool. I just
Sure.
don't like it.
Yeah, fair enough. I liked Shiva. I liked the ice moves a lot, actually.
I didn't use them at all.
They did a lot of stagger. Oh, not a big fan of Shiva. All right,
Oh, I mean, how do you know it does stagger? There's no number.
I guess
How do you know? How do you know
the
that?
meter fills up faster.
How do you know that?
Okay. And now we're moving on to probably one of the more interesting ones that you get, which is Odin. And his iconic feat is Arm of Darkness. I'm going to butcher this. It replaces your sword with Zantek Stukin, which is a recurring
it's
Final Fantasy.
Zenitsuken?
Zenitsuken, something like that. I spelled it right here. I just can't say
All
it.
I know is that when you charge Zenitsuken with different abilities, time stops.
Yes.
So you might as well.
Yeah, I thought Zenitsuken was really cool, and you can have it pre-charged too, so you can bring it into a boss fight, bring it into a mob fight, and just decimate them in 10 seconds.
Well, do you know what I don't like about it? It's just more movies.
It is.
Like, you're just watching it.
That's true.
You don't do it.
That's true. You don't do anything.
No.
I was going to say one of the best parts of like the ultimate move that it gets is that it stops time and you just do it.
Yes.
But you're actually not doing anything.
That's why Giga Flare is cool, because
Yeah.
it stops time.
It stops time.
It's Clive just slashing away at
Yeah.
someone, but you don't get to do it.
No, it just kind of does it.
I know.
Right. I did like Odin a lot. I thought Zantek Stutin, well, I can't say.
Zenitsuken, I think.
Whatever it was. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
All right, so my major gripe with this combat system is, yes, the iconic abilities are what they are. I thought Clive could have used more base techniques, base sword techniques, because when you're out of cooldown abilities, you're just slashing away. It's not that fun.
Do you know what you do all the time?
What?
Slash magic.
Yes,
You
'cause
do
the
it
little charge
all
thing.
the fucking time.
Yeah. So tell us in the comments what your favorite icons were, or what are some of the abilities you were. One really fun combo that I found was, the one from Rima, which you put like the little ball of electricity on the ground.
Yeah.
If you use Dancing Blade from Odin, you hit the ball like 1,000 times.
Interesting.
So it just throws all lightning everywhere. It's very fun. I recommend it.
Well, I think what I also like, I kind of dislike about this system.
Yeah.
Is like everything's on a cooldown, and also everything, no elements matter.
No.
It makes me feel like what I'm choosing is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You just kind of pick what you like.
Pretty much.
I don't love it.
Yeah, it's like, meh, not a big
You know what
fan.
it does? It eliminates the strategy from the game.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the next big point of combat, which is actually something that we don't give a shit about, and we are been very vocal about it on this show and various other things. We don't like mechs. We don't like big things. A big selling point pre-release of Final Fantasy XVI was you are able to take control of these icons and engage in these gigantic Godzilla-like battles with other icons.
That's a good way to put it.
It's not something that I love. I'm always very mixed on when you have to go into a mech or when you go up to a big thing.
too.
It's not my favorite thing, but some people love it.
I think the problem with this game is that many of I call them the summon battles when you play as Ifrit.
Yeah.
You mostly watch it. You rarely actually play.
That is what my it's like you're reading my notes. It was my biggest complaint when we were talking about earlier about all this stuff that happens in cutscenes. A lot of that is when you're battling as Ifrit. And which is really unfortunate because there's some battles where there's really not a lot of cutscenes as Ifrit, and they kind of rule actually.
They're fun.
And we'll get to them.
What I also think is ridiculous, when you become Ifrit, you do hundreds of thousands of damage.
Yes.
Like it's almost like the damage you do doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're just doing it to be funny.
I guess so.
You just did 89 million damage or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, big number. Woo.
Big number.
Hey, we like big numbers sometimes.
I guess.
Now speaking of cutscene combat, we're gonna get to something that I really don't like, and you're not gonna like it either. It's like, I guess we have to talk about it.
Are you talking about cinematic slashes and dodges?
Oh yeah.
I don't understand why these are in the game.
No, me neither. I purposely failed a few of them just so I could feel something.
What happens?
You just take damage most of the time. Yeah.
It's so stupid because they're also so easy to pass. You get so much time to hit the right button. Why are they in the game?
Yeah, unless you're sleeping at the wheel here, you're going to nail every single one of them.
I got 100%.
Yeah. Like I said, if you want to feel something during these, just don't hit them. It's kind of funny sometimes.
You know what I want to talk about right now? Because we're going to blow by it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I got exactly 2 game overs in this game, and they were both from getting one hit by something.
That's awesome. I got 2 game overs too, and one of them I feel really bad about, and one of them was really funny.
Okay.
Which we'll get to in the story.
Okay.
All right. We talked about exploration, the map. So the last thing I want to talk about in terms of gameplay, if you can even call them gameplay, is side quests.
They're awful. Like, I think I was really chomping at the bit to bring it up earlier.
Yeah.
Because the side quests in this game, they're horrific. Like, honestly, even if 1 or 2 of them are interesting, all of them, they look weird. Every character who gives them to you just doesn't, they just seem so bland and flat. You're delivering soup or collecting flowers. It's really weird. Even when the other side quests have you go kill things, it just feels like you're killing mobs, and it feels like it's distracting from the story because the story feels very urgent.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you can't fuck around. You need to go do this, but you're fucking around a lot.
Yep. You know what it feels like? You know, it feels like someone who made an MMO designed the quests.
I know.
It's weird, right?
It does feel like that.
It feels like
I know
MMO
you're
questing.
joking, but that's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
I don't like any of them.
No.
And let me say this. If I were to redesign Final Fantasy XVI, which I would let this guy have it if I met him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, emotionally and verbally.
Emotionally.
What I would have done to redesign this game, take all the side quests out and put all of the rewards from side quests, because some of them are helpful.
Yes.
Put all of those rewards in the world. Make them discoverable. Treasure chests, dungeons, like fortresses, things to explore. Make the rewards in the world. Like, get rid of side quests, put the rewards out in the world.
Yeah.
So there are things to find. Because all the side quests are worthless. I'm just skipping through all dialogue. They're fucking terrible. I don't know what else to say.
There's maybe a handful that give you a little bit of feelies. That's about it.
If you ask me if I want to compromise, sure, the ones you do for your party members, keep them.
Sure, fine.
Companion quests like Mass Effect, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
And The other part of the optional content that we'll just talk about really quickly is the only side quests, if you can call them that are actually good. I think the hunt board is pretty good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, you can, because I like it because it doesn't hold your hand. There's no like arrow, doesn't show you where it is. You read up, your guys have put on a board, hey, we saw this weird creature in the mountains of this region. Go and find it. Something like that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you get some good rewards from it.
I just feel like the rewards for all side quests should have been the hunt board of the world.
Yeah.
Just make them findable.
I agree. All right. So that's all I had for the gameplay.
I actually have one more.
What do you have?
I have that you don't customize your party members anything.
Thank you. Yes, we should bring that up.
Yeah, like you do travel with some party members from time to time. Like you have a dog with you named Torgal.
Yep.
You can actually have Torgal either use a heal spell or attack someone, but don't bother.
Yeah,
because he's going to do it anyway. Healing is so minimal.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful. You don't customize his abilities. You don't customize anyone's weapon or armor.
Nope.
I don't know. Why is it in the game?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like, do you wish you could control other party members or give them any equipment or anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I would be okay with like a Dragon Age Origins system where I have customized weapons and armor and spells and the AI takes care of it based on what I've given them.
Yeah.
That's okay with me. Or like if you could stop combat and like you're doing the Dragon Age thing.
Sure.
You're stopping combat and asking them to execute something.
Yeah.
That would be okay with me. But I think, how do I put this? The game just doesn't trust you enough. It doesn't give you enough to do. But I think if I asked them to give me this much, it takes away from how fast the combat is, but it does give you more to do. I think what they should have done in this game, let you customize your party members' magic and weapons and armor, and then let the AI take care of when to execute. Like I think that's fine.
I think the AI was generally fine.
It's generally fine.
Is like they is in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and now Rebirth is coming out in a week as of this recording. It does that where you can switch party members, you equip them and stuff like that, and it worked pretty well. But I guess they won't do something different for this game. I don't know.
It's fine.
It's
more like God of War.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Okay, Greg, if you're ready. If you're ready,
what's next?
We're gonna get into the story.
Well, it's all dog shit.
It's not all dog shit.
Most of it's
not
dog
all
shit.
dog
well,
shit.
let me say this.
Yeah.
If I were to be more professional, which I should be, most of it is a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Some of it is good and some of it is bad.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to put it.
That's what I would say.
That's a pretty good way to put it. All right. I'm going to lay some groundwork here, okay? Because we're going to get into the story. This is a huge game in terms of story. Like, it's maybe doesn't take that many hours, but there are a lot of things going on at the same time. There is a lot of little plot points going on in between the main ones. We are going to be pretty brisk. This is not going to be a plot summary.
The amount of times that this game shows you a cinematic and then says meanwhile and shows you something happening at the same time is brutal.
We are not going to be putting our audience through the same thing.
Meanwhile.
Meanwhile on goddamn GameCube.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to be doing that. So we won't be mentioning every one of those small bits, but we will be talking about all of the major plot points and the major characters. So we're sorry if we don't mention your favorite side character, but if they aren't important to the plot, we're not going to mention them.
Yeah, I think Nick is going to be pretty clean and concise here.
We're going to be pretty concise. So I think right now, we're going to start with the beginning of the game, and we're going to start with the tone it sets in the very beginning. So the land of Valisthea has magic from things called mother crystals, which are these giant fucking crystals, which you played a Final Fantasy game before, you know what a crystal is. And the crystal shards from these mother crystals allow normal people to tap into magical abilities, while other people, known as bearers, are born with the power of magic. And bearers are typically looked down upon, and because of their abilities, are frequently taken as slaves. As we said earlier, Clive is the central protagonist to his parents, Duke Elwyn and Annabella. Clive was not accepted by the Phoenix to be its dominant. Instead, his younger brother Joshua was. So Clive got some minor powers from the Phoenix, and because of this, becomes Joshua's guardian and is resented by his mother, Annabella.
Well, I think in the game they call him the Shield of Joshua.
Shield, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Shield is the right word for it.
So what I have here is that Clive is hated by his mother and
Yes.
Joshua is loved by his
Yes.
mother because Joshua is blessed by the Phoenix and can awaken his powers and Clive can't awaken. But oh wait, he can.
Just
right?
not as
Just
the
not
Phoenix.
yet. Yeah.
And a dominance is what's chosen by an icon. So for Joshua is the dominant of the Phoenix, and other characters are dominants of other icons as well.
Like Sid is Remu, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. And they are typically used as weapons of war.
Yep.
Dominants, depending on the nation, are either are either renowned or they're treated as simply a tool. Depends on the nation you're talking about. Now, there's some other things going on during the story called the Blights. I don't know why they didn't think of a different name, because Dragon Age does the exact same thing.
I don't know.
Kind of weird, maybe a localization thing. Is basically, as more magic is used, areas become dead. You can no longer use magic and nothing can grow. I actually thought they should have used this a little bit more. I thought it was a neat feature.
They don't.
They don't really use it at all. And the other thing that happens throughout this game is ether floods, which are pools of magic that disturb the balance of ether and whatever's going on, and they turn people and animals into these beings called Akashic,
which are essentially zombie people.
Basically.
Essentially magic zombies.
Basically, yes. Yeah. All right, so that's the groundwork for what's going on in the game, and now we're going to get into the prologue. Technically, the game starts with a combat sequence between Phoenix and something called the Infernal Icon. How did you feel about this initial battle? You're thrown into basically an FPS.
I mean, like, I'm thrown into a vehicle sequence right away.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Yeah.
You love those.
I don't love it. Like, I think what they're doing, they're just showing you a movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I think this is when, like, you're just kind of mashing fireball and you're flying, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's fine.
Pretty much. So once you're done with that, you enter kind of a modern day as mid to late 20s Clive, where he is a mercenary for the nation of Sanbreque, entering a battle with the goal of catching and capturing the dominant of Shiva. Titan's dominant is fighting Shiva in this battle. And that dominant is revealed to be a character named Hugo Kupka, which will become a major. Why are you laughing?
Sanjay Gupta from NBC or from CNN.
Stop that. So essentially, Titan fucks some shit up. You get knocked out, and you're sent 13 years back into a flashback. And this is where the gameplay really begins.
Yep.
You kill some goblins, you kill a Marble, it's whatever. You do some bullshit there.
I hate the rebranding of Marlboro, by the way.
Me too.
Why is it not Marlboro?
Yeah, I don't know.
Cigarettes?
Maybe.
I
It's
don't know.
Marlboro, though, not Marlboro.
Oh, shit.
So
You're right.
I don't know why
I don't know.
don't
They
like
rebranded it.
I don't like it either. So the first major story moment here is what's come to be known as the Night of the Flames. It's where Joshua is going to be enshrined officially as the dominant of the Phoenix, but this goes very, very wrong when enemy soldiers infiltrate the fort and they massacre everyone. This is where you said, oh shit, Final Fantasy XVI's popping off, because what happens?
And that's the last time it does, right? Well, what I think is interesting, they did a cool rug pull here where you play as Joshua the child.
Yes.
And you have like Firaga and different spells and fire swords and stuff. And you know what they never do again?
Yeah.
I'm spoiling this now.
It's
you
fine.
never play as another character
No,
again.
you only
play
play as
as
Clive.
like this nightmare sequence of like Joshua has to fend for himself as a kid.
Yes.
And it's interesting.
Yeah,
But
I
what
like it.
happens is I believe Elwyn gets his head cut off.
Yes.
Because your mom is the villain. Is it Annabella? What's her name?
Annabella, yeah.
Annabella betrays your kingdom, and because, and as far as I'm aware, this is what I can gather from this. Annabella betrays your kingdom which is Rosaria.
Yes.
Because she wants to keep her bloodline pure.
Yes.
And you were a failure. So she wants to go have kids with a different king to have more dominant children.
That is correct.
Is that right?
I believe that is correct.
And she kind of hates you because you weren't able to awaken, but she has Joshua anyway, so I don't know why she did this.
I think she's very greedy. She wants more dominant children.
That's what it looks like. And then I think I said, man, this game's popping off because I think your dad gets his head cut off.
He gets beheaded literally right in front of young Joshua.
He gets blood spattered all over him.
Yes.
And that's like the last interesting thing that happens in this game.
So what happens here, because Joshua is enraged, he turns into the Phoenix and engages in a battle. Basically the battle you started the game with.
Yes.
Because, and then as a result, seemingly Joshua is massacred by what you see as the Infernal Icon, which is Clive.
Yeah.
So essentially Clive is beating the ever-loving shit out of his brother as the Phoenix.
Well, but then again, this game is trying to do a rug pull though, where they're showing you on the screen that Joshua Phoenix is getting killed by Ifrit.
Yes.
Right?
They don't say it's Ifrit yet.
Yeah, they don't say it yet, but you get this little like, wait a minute, did Clive transform into this monster? And did Clive kill Joshua?
Yeah.
But you kind of have a little question mark.
Yes.
But keep going.
Yeah. And then at the end, Annabella comes back And she again revealed that she did the whole thing. She's walking the battlefield, and she chooses to keep Clive alive.
She enslaves him, right?
Yes, because he can use magic. He's technically a bearer.
Yeah.
So they make him a mercenary for Sam Breck, and now you go to present day. That's basically the end of the prologue. What do you think of this as the beginning of the game?
This is when you get the title card.
Yes, this is the title card.
When I saw this, I said, okay, I think this game's popping off. I said the tone is very serious.
Yep.
You playing as Joshua was really cool. They never do it again.
No, never.
I mean this sincerely. I think this was the last interesting thing. Like, it's one of the last adult moments that happens.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot.
No.
And this is like 2 hours out of 50.
Yeah. And I will say that this was actually the end of the demo as well.
Cool.
And that was incredibly effective at making me want to buy this game.
Yeah.
Because like I thought
Oops.
Well, because I thought the intro and the prologue, if we'll call it a prologue, were excellent. It was very well done all around, honestly. All right, so now we're going to get to present day into what I'm going to call the first arc of the game, where Clive and his little company are going to find the dominant of Shiva. And surprise, surprise, they find her.
Well, we should say this, though. Like, Clive is enslaved in the Sandbreck army, right? And he's going by Wyvern. He's going by
true.
He's going by a
fake name.
That's why, like, you kind of get a rug pull here where you're like, am I still playing as Clive?
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
like, yeah, you are. It's clearly a like a stage name or like a I don't know, a title.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? I kind of wish they brought that back more. There's only a couple of side quests where he gives a fake name as Wyvern.
Yeah.
It would have been kind of cool if
they don't use it that much.
No, not really.
We should also establish, like, this is funny to me.
Okay.
Because I think I screwed it up.
Nice.
Where you, as a kid, you interact with someone named Jill.
Yes.
Who is kind of your love interest, but I thought she was your sister.
Oh,
which is going to be really funny in a little bit.
That's really funny.
Yeah. I didn't get that was maybe lost on me a little.
That's really funny.
But anyway, you play as Wyvern.
Yes. So you play as Wyvern, you find the dominant of Shiva, engage in a battle with her. It takes beating her to a pulp to realize it's actually Jill. I don't know how you didn't realize that.
Which is ridiculous.
Listen, I know Clive probably has some trauma here, but I thought maybe you'd be able to tell it's her, but whatever.
Hey, if she was your love interest, you're not going to forget. Like,
right.
That's really weird.
Clearly Clive did. Hey, you know what? He's gone through some shit. Let's give him let's give him a break. So basically, you refuse to kill her, and then you turn on your comrades. They're all killed, either by Clive or by enemy soldiers. And then a whole bunch of enemy soldiers beset Clive, and they are blasted away by a whole bunch of lightning. And who comes out of the smoke?
Sidolphus.
Sidolphus Telemann with Torgal, your beloved dog, who was a puppy when you were a teenager, and now he has found you again as an adult dog, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So here you're introduced, you're taken to the hideaway, which is your first kind of base of ops. And I'm just going to list them all out here. These are really the main players throughout the game, which are Sid, Tarja, who is the healer, Goots, who is the big dumb trader guy, Gav, who plays your scout, Lady Charon, who sells the merchandise, Otto, who kind of does the paperwork.
Yeah, he does the paperwork.
And the blacksmith Blackthorn.
Yeah, Otto's like the project manager.
That's right. He's the project manager of the hideaway.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the hideaway, especially this first one? Spoilers.
I don't like it.
Okay.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's kind of, how do I put this? I've seen it too many times in games now where this is the hub where you do the things.
Yeah.
Right? You have a blacksmith where you upgrade the stuff, and this is the merchant where you buy the things.
Yeah.
I don't love it. It's what I don't like about it is I just wish you could walk to and from it.
Yeah, I know.
It feels weird that you go off to like the hideaway's like in this caved in this blighted area, but you don't get to see where it is. They keep saying how hard it is to find,
right,
and how no one's gonna find you because it's so desolate, but they don't show you.
No, they never
just kind of you fast travel.
Yeah, I think in the most part the hideaway, it's like it serves the purpose it needs to serve. But that's really about
it's very like what's the word like. I don't know what the word. It's serviceable. Like
it's serviceable.
You do the things.
Yeah, it's the place where you do the things and you come back to buy the stuff. That's really all it is. So from this point on, Torgal and Sid become your party members, and you leave to track down what is in the next main quest here. Clive has been seeing this man in a black robe who he's calling another dominant of fire, and he's tracking him down because he is a second dominant of fire, which if you're going by the cycle of icons choosing dominance, that should not happen.
Well, we should say this too. There's a big plot point in this part of the game.
Yeah.
Is that Clive wants to take revenge on who killed Joshua.
That's true.
Because number one, he thinks Joshua's dead.
Yep.
Number two, he thinks this hooded man may have done it. So he's trying to find the hooded man who potentially is an icon of fire, means he can turn into a fire creature, because he thinks this thing killed Joshua.
Yes.
And that's what his goal is to take revenge on Joshua.
Yes, basically. So Sid reveals here that he will join Clive on his quest because he is, one, a dominant of Ramu, and he wants to liberate all bearers. It's basically his goal.
Yeah, essentially magic bearers in this game are slaves.
Yeah, and he wants to free them.
So the way I interpreted this was you kind of have a handshake deal with him where like Clive will join Sid's rebellion army who's freeing slaves, but Sid will help you find who killed Joshua.
Pretty much.
That's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, pretty much handshake agreement.
Yep.
So a whole bunch of bullshit happens here. The next thing we're going to talk about is leading up to the fight with the first antagonist of the game, Benedicta Harmon. Why do you laugh at Benedicta's name?
There's some funny stuff that involves her.
There is. So you know what? Let's just fast forward right to it. The main quest takes you to Kaer Norvent in your pursuit of the man in the black hood. So why don't you talk about Benedicta a little bit?
I thought this was, it's not like it's poorly done. It's actually, the humor's actually kind of effective.
Yeah.
Benedicta is the love interest of multiple main characters.
Yes.
Like Sanjay Gupta. I'm just kidding. What's his
most
name?
recently, Hugo Kupka.
Hugo Kupka is into her.
Yes.
But I don't think he realizes that, this is what's weird about this game.
Yeah.
It's fine and they kind of pull it off.
Yeah.
But like Sid reveals to you that he dated her.
That's right. Yeah.
Like essentially you're in like the middle of the shit and he's like, we may have slept together. And I'm like,
that's right.
And I kind of stopped. I'm like, that was kind of funny.
It is funny, I think.
Yeah, it is funny.
No, I think it's good. So as you're pursuing...
No, he calls her his best and worst decision.
That's right. That's right.
I think so. Then I'm like, what is he implying?
It was like, and then you're like, oh, that's what he's implying.
Okay, that's kind of funny.
I thought it was pretty humorous. So in your pursuit of the man in the black hood, you do engage in a fight with Benedicta.
I actually think this is one of the better fights.
This is a great fight.
It's a good one.
In my opinion. Yeah, it's a great first fight. I actually thought it was pretty challenging
because you don't have many powers.
No.
And it's good.
Yeah,
I like it.
I think it's a great fight. So after you beat Benedicta in her human form, you take her powers for the first time. And Clive is like, what the fuck? I can drain iconic powers from people.
Yeah, so it's like essentially you learn that Clive can take summons from other people and he can embody the abilities of multiple summons. I call them summons. In this game, they call them icons.
They're effectively the same
essentially,
thing.
like Clive can take on the multiple elements.
Yes. And he takes Garuda from Benedicta.
Yeah.
So this throws Benedicta into a rage and she creates some crazy tempest, and she takes on the actual form of Garuda, which I really don't understand how, because I thought Clive took the powers. Maybe it's not all of them. I don't really understand how that works.
I don't get it either.
If someone can explain that to me, that'd be great. But either way, she does it. She becomes big bad Garuda. And as you're about to confront the Hooded Man, you engage in another battle with Benedicta as Garuda, where you take on the form of the Infernal Icon, aka Ifrit, to do one of your first summon battles.
Yeah.
And I think this one is like fine. It's like whatever. It's really the intro.
They're kind of introducing you to it.
Yeah, which I think is fine. So you get into one of these cinematic fights, but at the end of it, when you do defeat Garuda, Clive ultimately cannot control it. So Sid turns to Rama and just kind of blasts his ass into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Clive is now naked. I don't know why.
It's weird.
Clive is naked a lot.
Yeah. A lot of butts in this game.
That's right. A lot of butts, a lot of all that. So officially Benedicta is dead, and Hugo Kupka is very not pleased with this, which will become a plot point later. You're going to laugh every time I say this guy's name.
Yeah, it's funny.
So eventually you do find the Hooded Man, and it is revealed to be none other than Joshua, who we thought was dead the entire time, but we also think, he's the Phoenix. They can be reborn, I suppose.
Because that's kind of what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
Well, is this the moment where Clive thinks he killed Joshua because he realizes he is Ifrit?
Correct.
So he thinks he killed his brother.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other thoughts on Benedicta in Act 1 before we move on to the next second major point in this game?
I think the main plot point here is Clive thinks he killed Joshua.
Yeah, and you beat up Benedicta, and Hugo's not happy. That's really it.
That's where we are.
Yep. So now we're going to move on to Act 2. Jill has finally awoken in the hideaway. And you take her and go to Rosaria, where you meet another major character named Martha, who runs an inn, and she is a helper of bearers. This is a pretty important plot point here because you're introduced to the bearer's curse, which it comes into play later. As bearers continue to use magic, if you use too much of it, you start to get, I guess, call it gradual petrification.
Yeah, you kind of turn to stone or turn to sand.
Yeah,
right?
you turn to sand, and then like your body parts will start going. Your hand might turn to stone.
You know what I don't understand?
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain this.
Yeah.
Is Clive actually a bearer, or is he just branded with the mark?
I think technically, if you're going to become a dominant, you are a bearer. So Clive is technically a bearer.
You're 2 and 1.
Yeah,
okay.
Technically, I believe it's like the whole all squares are rectangles thing or whatever
Nice.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
All dominants are bearers, but not
Yeah.
all bearers are dominants.
Yes. Can I make another comment about this game?
Yeah.
I think Jill's name is weird.
Jill,
Because everyone has like a medieval or fantasy name,
Sure.
and hers is a shortening of a name.
it's not Jillian.
It's not Jillian. Wouldn't that have felt better?
It might have felt better.
Weird. It's weird.
Maybe her name is
Joshua's
Jillian.
not Josh.
No,
they
that's
call her
true.
Jill.
That's
It's
right.
weird. I don't
That's
like
true.
it, but keep going.
That's true. I never really thought about that.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Because I do like how Sid's name is actually Sidolphus.
Sidolphus?
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. All right. Anyway, so now we're going back to Act 2 here. So the main point here is you want to keep following Joshua because the point is he did not join you even after it's revealed to be Joshua. He went off to do his own thing because he wants to go back to Phoenix Gate. So you take Jill to go back to Phoenix Gate and finally uncover what's going on here. Here you're introduced to these like mechanical or strange kind of enemies called Fallen.
Yeah.
Which are assumed to be remnants of fallen empires, which for me, I thought that meant like remnants of fallen Magitech or others from past Final Fantasy games.
No, it's just like little Star Wars robots,
That's
right?
fair. Yeah, that's pretty much
kinda
what it is. Yeah. You face off against a boss called the Iron Giant, which for me is great. That is an early game Final Fantasy boss. An early in the life of Final Fantasy, you fight Iron Giants. This is a pretty nice throwback.
Like it?
And then you get into a fight with the Infernal Icon within Phoenix Gate, and where Clive learns his limit break ability, which is another part of combat we didn't talk about, but it's not really worth mentioning all that much. And you finally embrace that you can become Ifrit.
Yeah.
You, as in Clive, embraces that fact. So with Sid, Jill, and your dog, Clive embarks to Drake's Head in Sambrek, where Sid reveals that his plan is they need to start destroying the mother crystals. And Drake's Head is going to be their first one. And he also tells you this is something that people really don't want because people like their magic. They like their convenience.
Well, now, is he destroying... We need to make sure we make this clear here.
Yeah.
Sid wants to destroy mother crystals because using of magic is going to eventually make the world like dead.
Yep,
it's going to kill the world because magic drains the life from the fields and the air and the trees and all the wildlife. Is it right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you're destroying mother crystals because destroying magic will actually help the world grow.
Yes.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And destroying the mother crystals would also mean no more bearers and no more slaves.
Got it.
So that's why he wants to do it. And Clive's like, yeah, let's fucking do it. So here you fight a lot of Akashic, who are people who have been exposed to a lot of ether, and they're turned to, like you said earlier, I think is a good way to describe it, like blue zombie-like kind of guys, which happens when magic becomes too strong. Here, I think, is like an awesome boss fight. You face off against the Akashic Dragon.
Yeah, it's a good fight.
I think this fight rocks. And I also think this party formation is really cool because you get Ifrit, Shiva, and Ramu all on the same team.
And the dog.
And a dog, which I think is pretty cool. It's probably my favorite party combination in the game. Now, after you beat the dragon, Sid goes to destroy the crystal, and then a huge figure called Typhon jumps out and injures Sid/Ramu, and he cannot fight. Clive must fight Typhon as Ifrit, and this, I think, might be my favorite Ifrit fight in the entire game. Do you have anything you want to say about it?
No, keep going.
Okay, fair enough.
I like this sequence. Like, I liked the dragon fight. I liked this fight where Sid is knocked out and you have to kind of go mano a mano here, kind of.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it's not a cutscene Ifrit
Correct.
fight.
You actually have to play it.
You actually have to play it,
I
which
like
is great. So after you beat Typhon, which again is another reference to past Final Fantasy, Ultima comes out of the crystal and he keeps calling Clive a vessel, which you're like, what the fuck is going on? Now, Joshua comes running in to save the day. He saves everybody from a giant blast, and he tries to capture Ultima and put him in a cage so Ultima cannot take Clive away. Now, unfortunately, Sid is gravely wounded here, and this is a very effective moment of the game, and I really hate this happened because I love the guy. Clive accepts bearing Sid's quest, and Sid unfortunately dies.
Yeah, and he
here.
takes Ramu from him, right?
That's right. He takes
He
Ramu
kind of
from
lights.
Sid.
I feel like I've seen this before, though. Where has like a character lit a cigarette right before dying?
Didn't Luis do it in Resident Evil 4?
Yes.
That's right.
That's
didn't
exactly
think
what
about
happened.
that.
Yeah, I think
That's
you're
great.
right.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, Sid dies here, which is really sad. I really loved Sid as a character in
I
this
think
game.
happens here because
Yeah.
Sid is one of the better characters. I think that's why this game keeps falling off.
Yeah.
After this one, because he's just not in the game anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I think this is one of my favorite iterations of Sid in
he's
the
in a
entire
lot of the
franchise.
games. Yeah.
And he's great. I think he was one of the best characters in this game, and unfortunately, he's killed off. I would say maybe about halfway through the game. All right, so before we end this chapter, we get a scene of our friend Hugo Kupka. He has figured out that that Benedicta is dead, and he has figured out the location of your hideaway, and he is not thrilled about it.
No, he's not thrilled.
He leads his army and he decimates the hideaway. He murders a bunch of people, and not many of them make it out alive.
Yeah.
Only the major
Only the main
characters
ones
do.
that do the things you need them to do.
Correct. They're the only ones who make it.
Yeah.
Basically. So now, what I thought was cool here, actually, we didn't mention it before we got in. When you go to select this mission on the map, okay. Is it immersion breaking? Yes. But I like when games do this. It gives you the warning.
Yeah, you can't go back.
You cannot go back to this point. I go, ooh. I get a little like...
Something's going to happen.
Something's going to happen here. And well, it does.
Doesn't it kind of suck, though, how you can't go back to the hideaway and see it decimated?
You can't. Yeah, it's just
I
gone.
wish I could see it.
Yeah, just see it gone.
Yeah.
But no, it's gone. All right, so once he obliterates the hideaway, you get into the final time skip of the game. You go 5 years into the future.
Yes.
And you now play as Clive again, who has fully embraced the title of Sid the Outlaw.
And some people call you Sid.
Yes. And he's now called Sid, mostly to hide his identity.
Yeah.
And now the war is turning to face off against Hugo Kupka in the Dalmekian Republic. So this first part, I know you had issues with the initial sequence with the 5 years later. So
Yeah,
why
I
don't
didn't
you say
like any
anything?
of this. I think what happened was they play you like an hour of cinematics, and then they randomly transport you to the desert region where
Yes.
you're in this like cage fight with like this tiger because you're trying to liberate some bearers, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because they establish the time skip, but
Yes.
what happens is Sid dies.
Yes.
They establish a time skip.
Yep.
They bring you to a desert 5 years later, but like you never get to play any of it. So
No.
it feels really weird. I don't know. It almost feels like the content's cut.
Yeah.
Because you never go back to the old hideaway. I think they established the new hideaway after this, but they don't
Yes.
tell you how it was made.
Yeah, they basically say, oh yeah, in the 5 years until today, we made this new hideaway. That's
I'm
basically
surprised
how it
the
is.
first mission isn't for you to create a new one.
Yeah, or even like find it on the map.
Yeah,
Like, you have to
it's
find the
weird,
hideaway.
right?
It's a little strange. I
Yeah.
thought that was a little strange too. So that's a great segue we're getting into. You now find the survivors of the hideaway, and they've built an even bigger and better one. I love it because it's called the Invincible, which is the airship in Final Fantasy III.
God, it's a
great name.
throwback.
Great
Yep.
name. Great throwback. Now, I believe this is also the point where the hunt board appears, and you can
Yes.
start taking on those quests, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. So now the main part of this quest here is you need to go plead to your Uncle Byron to get his money and his soldiers to help in your invasion of Dalmekian Republic.
Is that what's going on here?
Yeah.
This was a little hazy to me.
It's a little rough. There's a lot going on. So you have to return to your homeland of Rosaria.
Do you know what's weird?
Yeah.
How come your uncle has never made an appearance through the 13 years of your family getting divorced and killed? And does he ever make an
He
appearance?
thinks you're dead.
Oh, is that why?
Yes, he thinks you were killed at the night of the Flames.
Does he ever make an appearance?
I don't think.
That's what's weird
Is
to
he
me.
in the intro? Is
I
he in the
don't-
prologue at all?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. So, basically, you have to go and basically convince your uncle that you are indeed Clive. You do it in some weird like play kind of thing.
You reenact a play you and him used to do as a kid.
Yes. And he finally realizes that you are Clive. He thought you've been dead the whole time. I got to point out, I love Lord Byron. I think he's funny. I don't know why.
I
really
think I
like
would have
him.
liked it better if he was more established. Like
Yeah.
he seems like, oh, I have an uncle. You do?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
He should have been in more scenes.
Yeah.
Because I like him a lot. So with his help, your next objective is to go to Drake's Breath to take on another crystal. Now, this is where Jill had been held captive for all of those years before you found her. So when you get to Drake's Breath, you go through the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. Jill goes into a rage and kills a bunch of people. And she takes the form of Shiva and to keep the lava at bay, while Clive deals with the area boss or monster protecting the crystal, which is a Final Fantasy V reference called the Liquid Flame.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I think is kind of cool. So here you destroy the crystal, and he and Jill escape. So another crystal down.
Do you know what was weird about this?
Yeah.
Jill has this really strange dialogue where she has this emotional moment where she's like, Clive, I did a lot of bad things when I was a dominant, and I'm going to get my revenge. What things? I tell you.
I guess if you're a tool of war, I guess you assume to have killed a bunch of people.
You know what I wish they did in this game? Yeah. I wish you played as other characters more.
Right?
Why don't you play as Jill when she was enslaved? Show us her doing something bad.
I thought you would do that.
Let me play it. They don't do it.
There's a lot of characters where I wish got a little more screen
Even
time
more
personally.
Coming.
Yes, and we'll get to them too. So then you go back to Rosalith, where you are interrupting a battle between Hugo, who has attacked Rosaria, and Rosalith's forces. Hugo captures Jill and forces you to surrender, and Jill is going to be executed. This part, okay, I kind of liked it because it was really cheesy. Torgal saves the day because he transforms into not really an icon, but he's a frost wolf.
Yeah.
And he gains new abilities in combat because of it.
Yep.
Which is very cool. Becomes a magic wolf.
Yeah, magic wolf.
Which is great. Now you get to rush in and face off against Hugo Kupka.
Against Sanjay Gupta.
All right, so I think the human mono-e-mono fight absolutely rocks.
So this is another moment where I think they blew it.
Okay,
like
go ahead.
The mono-e-mono fight is awesome.
Yeah.
It's only you and him.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's cool is Hugo is a I punch people, I'm strong guy.
Yes.
And it's really cool.
Yeah.
And also, can I talk about the end of the fight?
Yes.
You cut his hands off.
Fucking rocks.
And it fucking rules.
Yeah.
Because he can't punch anymore.
Yeah.
But they blow it. And Nick, and how do they blow it?
This is how they blow it, because they totally destroy the pacing here. Yeah. You may have forgotten about this, but before the second half of the Hugo fight, because he's carried away by Sleipnir, he basically escapes. You return to the hideaway and try and find him, and then Sid's daughter Mid sends you on a fetch quest that interrupts everything.
Well, let me say this too.
Yeah.
I don't think Mid is established until she shows up.
No, you don't know she exists.
I thought I missed something.
No,
when
you
Mid
didn't.
shows up, her name being Mid is really funny.
It's pretty funny, yeah.
But like Mid shows up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, Sid has a daughter?
Yeah, we didn't know.
Does she even know Sid is dead? I guess she does.
She knows Sid is dead, but we don't know about her.
Why didn't Sid bring that up, that she has a daughter? Why isn't the daughter at the fortress?
I don't know.
They fucked this up.
Yeah. There must have been something cut
they
here.
Cut this. Like, Sid randomly shows up and you not Sid, Mid shows up and you randomly have to be very nice to her.
Right.
Like, who is this?
Yeah, and you have to do fetch quests for her. Like,
It's
right
bad.
in the middle of this.
It's
Like,
bad.
what are they doing?
I don't know.
And then you go to the Valkyrie Desert and do a whole lot of stuff that I really just don't care about.
You do a God of War fight, like with Titan, right?
Oh yeah, I'm getting to that right now.
Right?
Yeah. You may have totally forgotten about this because it was all stupid. You go to like the Dalamil Inn and do a whole bunch of quests for
Is
the
that
blacksmith.
before Titan?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that
and
crazy?
It's all fucking pointless.
Yeah, it's all stupid. It's
Yeah.
like whatever. Nobody cares about this. Now you go to Drake's Fang, which is where Hugo Kupka has taken up arms as actual Titan.
Yeah.
This fight sucks.
It sucks.
Everybody loves it. I hate it.
This fight to me feels like this developer is trying to do God of War.
Yep.
He's trying to do Metal Gear Solid Revengeance.
I have the exact thing. It feels like an MGR fight.
All you're doing is like hitting cinematic moments.
Yeah.
It was so much cooler having the ironic boss fight of you going mono-e-mono with him and cutting his hands off, and he essentially like cries.
God, I wish that ended there.
What are they doing?
That was sick.
This is a moment where like Riley would say the direction is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I think so.
Yeah. Did they really have to squeeze a cinematic fight in here?
This is the one where they shouldn't have done it.
No, because the fight with Hugo Kupka, mono-e-mono, might be the best fight in the game.
It's up there.
That rocked. But
Yeah.
this fight
'Cause it's ironic,
sucks.
right?
Yes. Is this fight and this fight
Remember,
sucks.
I think we were in a private chat and I said, this is how I would have designed this
Yes.
fight. Why isn't the area Titan? You should be walking on him.
Yeah.
Isn't that be cool, right?
Yeah, because
But
he's
then
huge.
They screwed up.
Yeah, they fucked it up. This fight sucks. There's also like 5 phases and it goes on for so long.
They fucked it up.
Yeah. So anyway, Clive absorbs Titan here, and Hugo is dead. Now it's here that that Ultima and Barnabas and all the other villains start referring to Clive as Mythos.
Yeah.
The vessel of all the
Gods.
icons,
Yeah.
basically. All right. Oh yeah, and also you destroy Drake's Fang crystal here.
Whatever.
That also happens, yeah. All right, so we've said our piece on this part of the game. Now we're going to get to the next part, which details the Sambrek region and Prince Dion.
They screw this up too.
I want to leave you, I want to give you the floor here because this is the Prince Dion and Joshua conversation section.
This is so funny to me. Like,
Go for
this
it.
is if audiences out here think I'm wrong or I missed something, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think they just really bungled this or
Yeah.
cut something. So here's what I think is going on.
Yeah.
Joshua is going to Joshua, who is allegedly alive.
Yes.
And I don't believe Joshua and Clive have interacted yet.
No, I don't think so.
Joshua is essentially going to Sandbreck.
Yes.
Because he's trying to have a parlay with Dion.
Yes.
Dion is the son of the king.
Yes.
And the King Sylvester is now married to Clive's mom.
Correct.
This is so let's set the table here.
Yep.
Clive's mom betrayed you
Yep.
to go marry the king of this kingdom.
Yep.
Essentially to marry Dion's dad.
Yes.
Annabella has a kid with Sylvester.
Olivier.
Olivier.
Yep.
Right? And so Joshua is trying to have a parlay with Dion because Dion is sensing there's something wrong where this traitorous woman is now marrying my dad. They had a kid together.
Yes.
And they want the kingdom to go to the kid.
And not Dion.
And not to Dion. And they have this really funny conversation where, number one, Dion has a suspicion that there's something wrong with Olivier that he thinks either, I don't know if he uses the word Ultima directly, but he thinks there's some kind of demon inside of Olivier. And he says there's something wrong. But what's so funny about this to me is Joshua goes to that castle to have this parlay with Dion.
Yes.
Which means Joshua and Dion are essentially in the kitchen of the castle saying, dude, there's a demon kid. Like, you really got to stop your mom and dad.
Yep.
But the mom and dad are like in the next room over. Right. they're down the hall.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, you couldn't have done this somewhere else.
Right, you had to go here.
You had to go to. It's so weird.
It's
and
weird.
Also, like, why don't Joshua and Dion just go tackle it together? They just don't.
They don't do it.
It's so weird
Yep.
how they present this.
Yeah.
And also, like, Dion doesn't say to Joshua during this parlay, hey, man, like, this kid's also, like, he could be a demon. Like, I got to go do something about this. It's so weird.
It is really,
It's really weird.
strange. So, again, a whole bunch of stuff happens, but your next stop is Prince Dion. All you know is that Prince Dion has flown into a rage, and he has become Bahamut, and he's just tearing shit apart within the capital city.
So if we were to set the stage, you essentially, it's presented to you that Joshua and Dion want to overthrow Sylvester and Annabella.
Yes.
But then you get a rug pull where Bahamut, who is Dion, is now destroying the kingdom. And it
Correct.
feels very much like, what the fuck is he doing?
What is going on?
Yeah.
So now you and Joshua have to go and take on Bahamut and destroy the mother crystal that's there while you're at it. So I think this fight is interesting with Bahamut. It's kind of a combo fight. You have to use both Ifrit and Phoenix.
Yeah.
This was actually the site of my second game over because there is a kind of a time sequence.
This is like a countdown to a one-hit death.
Yeah, so you have to like destroy all the things or else you're going to get Giga Flared or something to death. And I fucked it up and I got Giga Flared to death.
Fine.
I thought it was funny, but I think this fight, if we're going by the cinematic fights, this is probably the best one. In the
It's
whole
fine.
game. It's not my favorite Ifrit fight, but I think it's the best cinematic one. I like the two brothers teaming up and going to take on who, if you play Final Fantasy, you know Bahamut as one of the most powerful summons ever.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good lead up leading into this fight. So essentially you beat Bahamut, you take Dion's Bahamut powers, which I already said I don't like it. I don't like Bahamuts in this game. And afterward, you get a very strange scene where your mom kills herself.
Can I talk about this? I know all the details of this because it was so weird.
Yeah, go for it.
So you got to set up this scene for people because it's so odd.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, you are in the middle of like a destroyed like castle. Like, you're running through, you're trying to find Annabella, you're trying to find Olivier, and you get into this really weird cinematic where you open this random door and Annabella's there.
She's just hanging out.
It's kind of like ironic. You're like, oh shit, the villain from the game is just here?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right? And what happens is she's kind of like shielding Olivier from Clive. By you, I mean Clive shows up and you're like, oh, hi, Mom. It's really weird.
Hey, Mom.
And so what happens next, I believe, is like Dion kind of stumbles onto the scene, right? Because you kind of defeat him as Bahamut. He throws his spear at Olivier and Olivier kind of disappears. So you have a realization where he was right, where Olivier was Ultima or he was a spirit. And I don't know if he was real at all.
Yeah, it's something
It's not
strange.
really disclosed.
No.
And what happens is, you even I think Joshua extends an olive branch to your mom and says, we got to get out of here.
Yes.
Like, join up with us. And
she keeps trying to stab him.
Yeah. And it's really pathetic and weird,
is.
but then your mom just cuts her own throat and dies.
Yeah. I thought this was so weird.
Okay, it's really weird.
Yeah.
I also kind of liked how ironic and funny it is.
It is
where,
ironic.
Like, you encounter the villain like 70% of the way in the game and she just offs herself.
Offs herself, yeah.
It's odd.
I don't know. I thought I had problems with this part. I thought Annabelle would be more involved. I don't know.
I don't think
weird.
I think it's kind of cool how she thinks she is, and then she's actually just like a weakling.
Yeah, I guess that's true. She's actually
But also,
nothing.
I think what they bungled here was it's unclear that Olivier is being possessed by Ultima.
Yeah.
And also the reason why Dion is enraged is because he accidentally kills his dad with a spear.
And you don't know that until after this scene happens.
They do it out of sequence.
Yes. I think there was a lot of cut content in this part.
I gotta say this too.
Yeah.
I can't believe you don't play as Dion.
Right? That would have been fun too. He's a dragoon. He can jump around.
Why aren't
he's Bahamut?
I don't understand how I think they should have actually written this completely differently.
Yeah.
I think you should have played as a new duo. Joshua and Dion do the like usurp the castle and stop the conflict.
Yeah.
I think
that
you
would've
should
been
have played as different characters.
That would have been really cool.
They don't do it though.
They chose to cut content in places that they shouldn't have in favor of content that they shouldn't have put in the game to begin with.
Just movies.
Yeah, movies and delivering pies.
Correct.
Yeah, you could have cut that and made you play as Dion instead.
I have in caps here, why don't you play as Dion?
That would have been awesome. And I actually think that's a pretty common complaint from the internet. Why can you not play as at least Dion?
Well, also, you play as Joshua once, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
I
don't know why. It would have added some nice variety to the combat,
so.
I feel. Anyway, all right. I want to point out here, because this is a running joke between us two, the next chapter of this game is called Things Fall Apart.
Oh, the book we had to read in school?
That's right.
Yeah, I caught that.
That's right. That's right. So after this chapter, I mean, things really do fall apart. The world goes to shit after you beat this mother crystal. Ether floods are going everywhere. Akashic are spreading. It's really not good. So the main villain of this part of the game is King Barnabas of the nation of Waloed, which I think is fun to say, on the continent of Ash.
Yep.
And that, we didn't establish this earlier, but Waloed is really the only civilized place in Ash.
Yep.
That's it. You mostly play on Storm with all these other places we've talked about, like Delmekia,
This is like
Sambrek,
Waloed and like Bahamut, or excuse me, Waloed and Barnabas are off in this like island kingdom to the right.
Yeah, pretty much. And Barnabas is also the dominant of Odin.
Yeah.
And he is also the last remaining dominance that you have not encountered, basically. All right. So let's get into the face-off against King Barnabas here. A lot of stuff happens. You get on a ship, and you travel to Ash through on midship, and you lose a couple times to Barnabas, who wipes the floor with Clive.
It's interesting where you get some like where Barnabas kicks your ass.
Yes, he kicks your fucking ass. I thought I fucked up like an action command. Yeah, it
was
QTE or something.
They do a rug pull.
Yeah, they do a rug pull here. And you get a really funny scene here where you are washed up on this shore and you are naked with Jill.
It's really weird.
It's really weird. Presumably, you finally do the deed.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, fucking finally.
I mean, how many years has it been?
A long time. They've known each other since they were kids. They've been fighting together for probably 10 years now.
13?
Maybe 13?
It's probably more than that.
Yeah. So
13 plus 5.
So Clive starts the game at 17.
And isn't there a 13-year skip and then 5?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
odd.
Anyway, it's a really weird scene. It's fine, whatever. Our joke is I kind of wish it played like the Win major battle music when this scene happened. I thought it would have been really funny and just says, finally, or something.
I know.
Well, anyway, so now the main objective is, I guess, you just fuck this up, and now you have to just go right back to Ash.
Yeah.
You just kind of go back there. So I actually really like Ash as a set piece.
I was about to say this. This is one of the like only interesting set pieces where you go
cool.
across this like desecrated kingdom, and you're in these like, like castle fortresses and stuff, and it's actually cool to run around in.
Everything is dead, essentially. There are no people except you find the pregnant woman Edda.
Yeah.
That is the only survivor in one of the
she
towns.
survived this.
I believe that she survives because she is pregnant and her baby is a bearer.
So she wasn't turned into a creature.
I believe that's how that works.
That's how they explain this.
Yes, I believe that's how that works. But I think Ash is pretty cool to run around.
Yeah.
I thought it was nice. And it's actually pretty challenging too. There's some tough enemies just walking around the place. You got to play pretty well to get through Ash. So now you get into confronting Barnabas at the Tower of Reverie, and I need to rant about this. I don't know if you feel strongly about this part, but I do.
Okay.
Reverie sucks.
Okay, why?
When I first started, if you play a lot of Final Fantasy, right? typically the big turning point in the game. You got to confront the big bad at the top of his tower.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's it. We're getting it with Reverie. It's a fucking straight line with elevators.
Yes.
And cute fucking cutscenes. There is nothing here.
Well, the game has run out of tricks.
Yeah. There is nothing cool for you to do. You get in elevators, you find worthless treasure. Typically, if this was another Final Fantasy game, you'd find maybe the best sword in the game here. You'd fight cool no.
And it's hilarious to me how much of the best armor and weapons in the game are you buy better weapons than them at the shop.
So stupid.
It's so weird.
It's so bad. So I thought Reverie was going to kick ass, and it sucked.
It's just fine.
I hated this part.
Yep.
So now you face off against Barnabas for the third or the fourth time now.
Yep.
Barnabas and Odin kind of in a combined fight. The internet does not like this fight. I like it.
I like this fight.
I like it. You know why we like it? Because you fight less as Ifrit and more as Clive.
As one-on-one.
Yeah. And I think it's cool. It's relatively challenging too.
Yeah.
So at this point, Clive kind of knows what's going on and what Ultima wants him to do. So he does not want to absorb Odin.
Yeah.
But Barnabas actually is very creepy. We haven't really shown how creepy Barnabas is, but he latches on to Clive's leg and he really forces Odin's powers onto Clive. Be the vessel, you're our mythos, stuff like that.
Well, I think what's going on here is that you kind of see behind the scenes where Ultima wants Clive to have
everything.
all icons within him so he can be the vessel for Ultima.
Correct.
And so Clive is trying to walk this line of I want to kill Barnabas and leave. I don't want to take on all these powers.
Correct.
But Barnabas in his dying is he's sort of on the ground bloodied and he grabs you and gives it to you.
Yes.
It's interesting.
And I think what's pretty cool here when he finally dies, it's revealed that Barnabas has been an Akashic the whole time.
That's interesting.
Which is very cool. So he's really not alive. Would explain why he's so creepy. He also has these. Do you remember this scene? He's having a dream and he sees every single major antagonist naked in front of him.
Oh, and the more weird naked stuff.
And he calls one of them mother. It was fucking weird.
It's really weird.
I have no idea. Maybe it's Ultima. I have no idea. So now you have to go and destroy the last mother crystal at stone here called Drake's Spine. At this point in the game, things are fucking bleak. But I think this quest to get to Drake's Spine is very cool. It's called Streets of Madness. There's a lot of really great set pieces and fights as you fight through the city of Stone here. You fight off against the Behemoth, Akashic Coerls. It's a pretty cool place, and you also fight with Joshua. Which is cool too. Dion and the others come in to help you, and they fend off the hordes of Akashic while you go in to take on the last Mother Crystal. And the boss here is actually Ultima.
Yeah.
Not final boss Ultima, but Ultima as a different form. So you and Joshua combine into what's called Ifrit Risen, and you kind of just blow the doors off of Ultima, and that form is gone.
Well, we should say too, there's one part of the story we've left out, which I find confusing.
Go for it.
Joshua, he put Ultima in his chest or something?
Yes.
But Ultima is out and about? What happened with this?
So it turns out there is one Ultima per Mother Crystal.
Oh.
So that's what's going on. But with Joshua capturing one Ultima, they can't combine.
I see.
That's what's going on.
I see.
Yeah.
So, and it's making Joshua sick.
Correct.
Yeah, he's coughing up blood and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not great for Joshua. He's not having a good time. So after you destroy the Mother Crystal here, after Ultima raises what's called Origin from the ground and puts it in the sky, and you return to the hideaway to prepare for the final challenge.
And what they do then is they introduce you to 20 more side quests.
It's pissed me off so much.
The pacing is unbelievably bad.
Because I was actually kind of pumped here.
Me too.
Let's go. The mission is called Back to Origin. I'm like, yeah, let's fucking go.
And
I'm ready.
You get these 20 side quest pop-ups.
It's so bad, dude.
I don't get this.
If they had just left it, you have 2 or 3 companion quests here that I think are nice. That would have been fine.
Why didn't they do the Jill one? And that's all you do.
There's a Joshua one where you go to see your father's grave.
Why don't you do that before?
I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Weird.
I think they should have left it at just the Joshua one, just the Jill one, just the Dion one. And I think that would have been just fine.
What are they doing?
I don't know. But I was so pumped to get into Origin and finish the game. I was ready.
Yeah.
But I know I got to do 25 fucking side quests first.
I know. It's so stupid.
Sucked. I hated that so much. So now we're going to get into the finale here.
Before you get into it,
Yes.
I want to give the audience a little insight into my relationship with you, which I think is really funny.
Well, we are brothers.
We are.
First, yeah.
I think what's very funny is I kept saying to you over the course of me playing this how much I hated this game. And you kept saying to me, Greg, you just gotta wait for the ending. Like the ending is really, it makes all the difference. You just gotta see it through. And what's so funny is like you were trolling me the whole time. Because what we're about to talk about is like the ending sucks. And so
I'm so sorry.
I know.
I had to keep you going somehow.
I know.
And by telling you the ending is great is the only way I was able to do it.
All right, let's get to the end of this.
All right, so it's decided that Clive, Joshua, and Dion will head for Origin. Jill and Torgal will remain behind. We should mention it's mostly because Jill is starting to succumb to the Bearer's curse.
Well, also she gave you her powers.
Yeah, you know what? We didn't mention after that weird sex scene, she does give you Shiva.
That's weird.
I did forget about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gives you Shiva there, and it is revealed that she is slowly turning to stone. So you don't want Jill to fight anymore.
I see.
And so Jill does not come with you.
Yep.
Another point in your hat of maybe this game hates women is only the boys go into it.
The boys. There's also this really weird moment where like Clive and Dion and Joshua say bye to everyone and then they sprint away.
That's right.
And like jump off the hideaway.
Bahamut.
It's so weird.
I believe in this part the Final Fantasy theme plays,
It's
which
so
I kind of
stupid.
like, but it's
so
weird.
stupid.
All right, so basically you get on the back of Bahamut, and you head for Ultima, who is at Origin. So you get there. There's really no pleasantries here. You immediately begin the fight with Ultima. And he whips your fucking asses. Like all three of you, like even as Ifrit, Phoenix, and Bahamut, you're getting your shit torn
Doesn't
apart.
Dion die?
Yeah, Bahamut, aka Dion, takes a fatal blow for Joshua and Clive, and he dies here.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to put a quick pause here. We talked about Dion a little bit, but I want to know, what do you think of Dion, and could he have used more screen time?
Yeah, you should have played as him. Also, he kind of gets killed in the first 10 seconds of this fight, and I don't think they played this very well.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like they kill him off, but they don't put any emotion behind it. It's like, oh, he's gone. Thanks.
Yeah. Because you kind of know that Dion's going to die. He says he wants to sacrifice himself to to redeem what he did.
Yeah.
So you kind of know he's going to die. I just wish he got a better ending.
Yeah, it feels very like, what's the word, undramatic? Like, oh, he's gone.
Yeah. I like Dion a lot. I wish he got more screen time, and I wish his death was a little bit better. But anyway, Dion is dead, and that's over. So at this point, it's really fucking weird, right? You and Joshua have fallen deep into Origin, and you're kind of walking injured arm in arm as Ultima just monologues you for a while.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. So at this point, you walk in, and you come to the realization that this is what Ultima has wanted the whole time. Clive is now bringing all of the icons back to Ultima.
Because one of the Ultimas is in Joshua.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now at this point, I believe Ultima breaks free from Joshua.
Yeah.
And goes to join up with the other Ultimas, and they become
Ultimate.
Ultimali, whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah. And here Joshua dies.
Yeah.
And he relinquishes the full power of the Phoenix to Clive.
Okay, this moment is not bad.
Yeah.
It is just really funny how Ultima lets you have such a long dialogue.
He really does.
You would think, if you directed this game, you'd think that Joshua would be like 5 seconds, like, hey, dude, I'm donezo. You got to go do this turnaround. He's right there.
Yeah.
Right? But no, they have like 20 minutes.
It's a long time.
They should have done that after. You should have done the Ultima fight and then gone and had that.
It's so weird, right? Like, I don't know. I think Joshua's death is good. Joshua, I feel, was a very successful character in the game.
Yeah,
and
but I just think
meaningful.
he could have sat there half dead while you did the fight, and then you have the final, like, fist bump.
That's right.
Like, come on.
That's right.
It's weird.
Maybe Ultima's like, yeah, you know what? I'll give them their time. I know what's going to happen.
I'm going to rule the world anyway.
Yeah,
go take 10.
That's right. Yeah, go take 10. You know, I gotta get ready anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now you initialize the final fight here. Honestly, this final fight sucks. We don't have to talk too much about it. It's a bunch of cutscene bullshit.
It sucks.
It's awful. I hate this final fight. If we're going down like the pantheon of Final Fantasy, this might be my least favorite final fight.
It's down there.
It's not as bad as Final Fantasy XV's final fight, but it's pretty bad.
It's lame. Like,
it's really
you have
bad.
a really easy lame one-on-one fight, then you have just a cinematic like God v God fight. It's not good.
Yep. So it's over. You defeat Ultima as the combined like Phoenix and Ifrit, Risen, Big Power, whatever. So that's done. And now we come to the actual conclusion of the game where Origin is destroyed.
Yep.
You get a scene with Clive floating ashore somewhere. We don't know where he is.
I don't understand this.
Yeah.
There's something. Are they implying that Clive turned to stone because his hand becomes sand?
Yeah. So Clive.
Or
Go ahead.
Or are they implying that magic has left the world and he can't do it anymore? Is that what he's doing?
So both. Both actually is what's going on here. So he absorbs Ultima to destroy the crystal, and absorbing Ultima proves too much for him.
Yeah.
He can't control it anymore, and he succumbs to the bearer's curse, and he dies. That is how that goes. And with it, magic also dies.
And I believe, doesn't the bearer's curse get lifted from everyone else?
Yes, because you then have the scene with Gav, the pregnant woman, and Jill.
Yeah.
Where the pregnant woman, she has the baby. It's like signaling the birth of a new world, that sort of thing. And then Jill looks out and sees that the moon they always looked at is no longer there, and she knows that Clive has died for the cause. So Clive is dead, and that's it.
Not really.
Well, yeah.
There's this one.
Are you sure? Do we have to?
There's a post credits.
God, fuck. You know what? I fucking hate this because you know what?
Too.
I like this. They had the balls to kill the main character.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like the way Clive went out.
Yeah.
He did his duty. He saved the world, and he died doing it.
Allegedly.
I think he's dead.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
they
he's
don't
dead.
show it.
They don't show, but I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Yeah.
And I'm very surprised they killed the main character in 2 Final Fantasy games in a row. Spoilers, but whatever.
Yeah.
But Clive is dead. I really like that. To me, the game ends here. And there is no post-credits.
There's this weird post-credits where these 2 kids of the future are pretending to use magic because in theory the world doesn't have it anymore.
Yes.
And they're reading a book called Final Fantasy by Joshua Rosfield. What's his last name? Rosfield?
Yeah.
So does that mean Joshua lived?
Yeah. Can I tell you why this pisses me off?
Yeah, it pissed me off too.
So the aspect of this ending that I did like in theory is the 3 boys got to go on to take down Origin and none of them come back, but they do it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of cool. It's almost like the mission is doomed, but they did it.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a really great way to end the game. But instead, it looks like Joshua may have lived.
I think what they tried to do here was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Clive casts Phoenix down on him.
It's possible.
I think he does. He uses, I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
When Joshua is sitting there dying and he gives Clive Phoenix, Clive tries to use Phoenix down on him. But then he just kind of leaves the body there.
Okay. So maybe Joshua did live.
It's stupid.
Dude, I would have liked it if they all just died, because to me, that's a very effective ending.
You don't even know if Clive died. They don't show you.
I mean, I think he's dead.
They don't actually show you.
I guess they don't.
He's going to come back in 16-2.
No, please don't give me a 16-2.
But just with one hand? That's if Metal Gear Solid 5.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So that's the epilogue. That's the end of the story. What I want to say about this story, I think what they are successful at is they went for a more serious tone. And I believe that is mostly successful. They employ humor and I believe the humor is pretty effective. I think it's tasteful for what they're trying to do. But the pacing is atrocious.
It's so bad.
You go from a really cool moment, like beating Hugo Kupka one-on-one, to having to find flowers on the beach as part of the main storyline.
It's really weird.
That's all I really want to say about the pacing and the story, because I feel like they were trying to tell a pretty good story here, but it is ruined by the terrible pacing.
You're not wrong. Like, I think the more adult tone I actually like better for this franchise. They just muck it up. Like, every 5 minutes you're interrupted with a cinematic. Every 5 minutes you're interrupted with a side quest. Every 5 minutes you're doing something silly which distracts you from the tone.
Yes.
It's odd.
Yep. I think the game would have been much better if those pacing, like, all the side quests, just eliminate them. This becomes a 20-hour experience, and I think the story would have been very effective.
Because it helps everything, right?
Yes.
It makes the world feel more lived in. It makes you want to explore it. It connects all the pieces together. Like, yeah, you and I have a lot of problems with the math of this game. The combat, it's not like it isn't fun.
Yeah.
But it's too limited. They don't give you anything to do. Like, there's a lot of problems.
There is.
Now, are we on final thoughts? Or
We're on final thoughts. I'll go. I'll go first here. So my final thoughts are: we talked about the story at length. I think the political intrigue they're trying to go for, what they went for in the story, I think is good at a base. But they ruined it with the pacing.
Oh, and also it's too confusing. Like they do so many meanwhile. Yeah. It's
pretty epic in scale and it's hard to follow at points.
Yes.
But I think the gameplay is all right. The game needed to be a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, for you to take the full advantage of the combat system. Because like you said, you can just take whatever you want and go with it.
There just isn't enough math.
There's not enough to it.
Yeah. We're big on the math here.
Yeah, we're big on the math on goddamn GameCube.
Big on the
math. Grading this game is really hard for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, it's hard.
Because there are some really good points in this game. Parts where I felt like I am the fucking man because I cut off Hugo Kupka's hands.
But they ruin it.
They ruin it.
They ruin it.
They ruin it. And I can't say I didn't enjoy the general gameplay because I did. I did enjoy playing
where
it.
I think, you know what this game has?
Yeah.
This game is kind of charming despite how bad it is.
Yes.
I mean, the audience, I don't think this is a good game.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
We know there's so many parts of it where we've said it over and over. The pacing consistently interrupts you.
Yep.
There's not enough math. It's not a good enough RPG.
Yep.
There isn't enough in the action combat either.
No.
The world is dead. The fucking side quests are terrible.
Yeah.
The side characters are terrible. Like your character Clive looks really weird doing anything.
Yes.
Like it's odd. Like a lot of the tone of this game is odd or at odds with what the point is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like it's hard.
I think I've come to my conclusion here for a grade. I didn't hate playing it, but there are too many problems for me to grade this game in the Bs.
There are too many problems.
This game, I think, is really riding on its aesthetics and production quality too.
Yes.
This is a C+ for me.
Okay.
Yep. That's what I'm going with. Over to you.
I thought you might go there.
Yeah.
It's so hard to grade this game
tough.
where we've talked about it to death. I won't repeat so many points. Gameplay's lacking, RPG elements are lacking, side quests are terrible, side characters are terrible, world doesn't feel lived in, but this game, for some reason, is kind of charming.
And it's not fun to play.
No. You know what? I'm going to give you an interesting grade.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this game the same grade I gave to Resident Evil Village, and I'm going to give the same recommendation.
Okay.
It's a C-, and I think if you're a Final Fantasy fan, you should play it.
Yeah,
I said the same thing about Resident Evil Village. I had a lot of problems with it. I think half of the game is worthless. And in this game, most of it is.
Yeah.
But if you like Final Fantasy games, I still think you should see it through.
Yeah.
But I can't give it a good grade.
You are going to get some really cool moments. And I do think some of the big battles are really some of the best fights you'll see in gaming.
But most of the game is bad.
Terrible pacing.
Bad.
Yep.
It's almost like this is a bad game that's presented. I almost said presented well. Kind of.
My word I was using is masterpiece.
That you're not wrong.
Where there's some really high highs, but there is so much of this game is such a fucking mess.
Waste of my time.
That it drags it down.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. For me, that's a C+ game.
I think I have to grade this and Resident Evil Village the same.
Yeah. Yep.
Where this is weird, right? I'm giving it a C-, but if you like this franchise, play it.
Yeah. I would agree. And that's all I've got for Final Fantasy XVI.
I think we're wrapped here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this dressing down of Final Fantasy XVI. And we'll see you next time on Goddamn GameCube. I also do want to say this. Our season finale is coming. So if you have questions that you want to ask us during the finale, we always do a mailbag. So if there are questions you have for us, please submit them via social media or whatever platform you want. And we'll see you next time on Goddamn GameCube. Thanks.